Chapter 1692. After the Undying Heaven Lord left, Yi Xian was stunned for a moment before he came to a realization. It wasn't that the Undying Heaven Lord didn't want to kill Yi Xian, but the Undying Heaven Lord knew that Yi Xian had the Forbidden Escape technique, the Heaven Calamity Transformation. Even if he wanted to kill Yi Xian could rely on the Heaven Calamity Transformation to escape. Moreover, Yi Xian also had a resurrection technique. So what if he killed Yi Xian? Yi Xian would still rely on his secret technique to come back to life. In fact, from the beginning, Yi Xian had been scheming against the Undying Heaven Lord, hoping to use the Life Calamity technique to open the 10th gate of heaven. But on the other hand, the Undying Heaven Lord was also scheming against Yi Xian, only to confirm whether Yi Xian was still alive or not. He was also trying to find out all of Yi Xian's trump cards, so that he could know his enemy. Only then could he truly kill Yi Xian. The Undying Heaven Lord already understood Yi Xian's life-saving methods. Whether it was the Forbidden Escape technique, or Yi Xian's Life Calamity technique, he already knew all of Yi Xian's trump cards. The rest was simple. As long as he targeted Yi Xian's 2 trump cards, he would definitely be able to kill Yi Xian. And it was only a matter of time. At this moment, looking at the Undying Heaven Lord's departure, Yi Xian's expression gradually turned heavy, because the person who understood you the most was definitely the person who hated you the most. Although the Undying Heaven Lord had left, his trump cards had been seen clearly by the other party. This was a great crisis for Yi Xian, because the Undying Heaven Lord would definitely target his trump cards and come up with a plan to kill him. No, I must open the 10th gate of heaven as soon as possible. Otherwise, when that old bastard finds a way to break the Life Calamity technique, I will definitely die in his hands. Yi Xian muttered to himself. Boom! Yi Xian took a step forward and disappeared into the starry sky. Great Central Region, Northern Region Celestial Court. After so many years, the Northern Region Celestial Court continued to grow stronger. Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen had both stepped into the immortal realm. Gu Beichen had already opened the 3rd gate of heaven, while Fatso Huang's talent was slightly weaker. He had also opened the 1st gate of heaven. However, with the arrival of Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang, the strength of the Northern Region Heavenly Court had increased greatly. In the entire Central Region, they were considered a top sect. However, Fatty Huang and the others obeyed Yi Xian's orders and stayed in the north. The people from the Northern Region's Heavenly Court rarely walked around the Central Region, so they could be said to be unknown. Today finally, Yi Heaven's return to Heaven's Heaveness. Just as he returned to the Northern Region Celestial Court, Fatso Huang, Gu Beichen, and the rest quickly came to see him. Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang also hurried over. Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang were shocked that Yi Xian could return alive from the hands of an ultimate expert. However, to Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen, Yi Xian was always able to create miracles. They were already used to it. After not seeing Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen for many years, Yi Xian briefly caught up with them. The two of them also reported to Yi Xian about the Northern Region Celestial Court's development over the years. Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen had been by his side since the human realm. The relationship between the 3 of them was naturally incomparable. This was also the reason why Yi Xian was assured to hand the Northern Region Celestial Court over to the 2 of them. After chatting for half a day, Yi Xian went into seclusion. This was because the threat posed by the Immortal Heaven Lord was getting stronger. Yi Xian was extremely sure that the Immortal Heaven Lord would make a comeback soon. He had to open the 10th Heavenly Gate as soon as possible to deal with the ultimate threat. Heavenly Emperor Palace. This was the palace that Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen personally built. It was also the training ground that was built for Yi Xian. The reason why it was named Heavenly Emperor Palace was because Yi Xian was the Heavenly Emperor of the Celestial Court back in the Chaos World. In their hearts, the title of Heavenly Emperor was the most suitable for Yi Xian. Inside the Heavenly Emperor Palace, the palace had no roof, and the sky was filled with stars. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void. The light of heaven burial reincarnation surrounded his body. The 9 heavenly gates hummed and rotated behind him. He was examining his own cultivation. One step. He was only one step away. Yi Xian was only one step away from opening the 10th heavenly gate. However, this final step really put him in a difficult position. Phew! Yi Xian slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He slowly opened his eyes. The 9 heavenly gates behind him gradually dissipated. His eyes were heavy. Resources. Cultivation resources. To take this final step and open the 10th heavenly gate, the amount of cultivation resources that he needed was unimaginable. Damn it! Yi Xian's eyes were dark. He let out a long sigh. If the life-stealing technique succeeded, he would not be in such a difficult position. However, Yi Xian also knew that he was not the child of destiny, nor was he someone with great luck. The life-stealing technique only had a 50% chance of success. It was natural that it would fail. If not for his avatar, he would have died long ago. What should he do? This final step put Yi Xian in a difficult position. The amount of cultivation resources that he needed was unimaginable. Even if an entire sect were to use all of their resources, it would not be enough for him to break through. There's no other way. This is the only way. Yi Xian murmured. A cruel look flashed across his eyes. Since the life-stealing technique had failed, he wanted to open the 10th heavenly gate as soon as possible. The only way was to plunder. He wanted to open the 10th heavenly gate when the immortal Heaven Lord made a comeback. Only then could he truly face the strongest of all time. On this day, Gu Beichen and Fatso Huang were summoned to the Heavenly Emperor Palace. Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang were also summoned by Yi Xian. Half a day passed. The 4 of them walked out of the Heavenly Emperor Palace at the same time. Orders were passed down from the 4 of them. The first order was that all cultivation resources of the Northern Region Celestial Court were to be sent to the Heavenly Emperor Palace. The second order was that all cultivators above the 3rd stage of Dao querying in the Northern Region Celestial Court were to transform into 8 forces, led by 8 sempiternal realm cultivators. They were to exterminate sects and clans, and plunder the cultivation resources of those sects and clans. The third order was for Fatso Huang to personally head to the Extreme Emotion Heavenly Palace to deliver Yi Xian's letter. The last order was for Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang to lead their teams. Each of them led 4 Immortal Realm cultivators and headed to the top sects in the Grand Central Territory. Suddenly, the entire Northern Region Celestial Court was in operation. The movement of the Northern Region Celestial Court caused the entire Grand Central Territory to tremble. Massacre! Massacre! Annihilation! The movement of the Northern Region Celestial Court was not a big deal, but all the sects in the vicinity were massacred. The Northern Region Celestial Court plundered the cultivation resources of these sects and sent them back to the Northern Region Celestial Court. Yi Xian's idea was simple. Since the life-stealing technique had failed, he had to open the 10th gate of heaven as soon as possible. He had to accumulate an endless amount of cultivation resources. The cultivation resources that the Northern Region Celestial Court had accumulated over the years were not enough. He could only order people to massacre sects and plunder their cultivation resources for his own use. Inside the Heavenly Emperor Palace, the cultivation resources that the Northern Region Celestial Court had accumulated over the years were piled up like a small mountain in front of Yi Xian. The vast amount of spiritual items turned into majestic spiritual energy and was absorbed by Yi Xian. Yi Xian's cultivation base was increasing bit by bit. He was gradually advancing toward the 10th gate of heaven. Chapter 1693. In the outside world, the entire Northern Region Celestial Court was extremely brutal. Almost no one dared to stand in their way. Other than the strongest orthodoxies, all the sects and clans that were targeted by them did not have a good ending. Don't forget that Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang were both at immortal great perfection. As long as it was not a half step to the strongest or an immortal great perfection, no one would be a match for them. A huge amount of cultivation resources were sent back to the Northern Region Celestial Court. There were even people who continuously sent these cultivation resources to the Celestial Emperor Palace. Yi Xian immersed himself in the sea of spiritual energy to cultivate crazily. His progress towards opening the 10th celestial gate was getting faster and faster. On this day, the Extreme Emotion Heavenly Palace sent over a huge gift. Almost half of their cultivation resources were piled up in front of Yi Xian. Originally, Yi Xian did not want to trouble the Extreme Emotion Master. However, in order to open the 10th Celestial Gate, he had to put down his pride and ask. Days passed by. The entire Grand Central Territory was plunged into a storm. The Northern Region Celestial Court's cruel actions were getting more and more ruthless. Everywhere they went, they would destroy sects and clans. Everyone in the Grand Central Territory was in danger. Finally, the 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace that ruled the 10th Eon finally made their move. After all, the 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace was the strongest orthodoxy in the 10th Eon. It was impossible for them to let the Northern Region Celestial Court do whatever they wanted. However, it was a pity. With Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang, the 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace's people were defeated. However, the 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace naturally would not let this go. Finally, a half step to the strongest walked out from the 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace. Only then did Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang retreat. The news about the Northern Region Celestial Court naturally reached the Lord of all Spirits' ears. Fortunately, although the Northern Region Celestial Court was cruel, the Lord of all Spirits was high and mighty. He could not personally take action. This gave the Northern Region Celestial Court a chance to breathe. They began to keep a low profile. Celestial Court of the Northern Region, inside the Celestial Emperor Palace. Yi Xian's entire body was submerged in the sea of spiritual energy. The phantom of the 10th Heavenly Gate was faintly appearing, and streaks of terrifying heaven's burial reincarnation revolved around Yi Xian's body. A little bit, just a little bit more. Yi Xian was cultivating crazily. He could feel that he was just a little bit away from completely opening the 10th gate of heaven. 1,000 years. The cultivation resources of the entire Celestial Court of the Northern Region were all used up, and a huge amount of cultivation resources were continuously sent in from the outside world. The Extreme Love Master had even sent over half of his family's wealth. If Yi Xian still couldn't open the 10th Sky Gate, even he would die of shame. On the other side in the Eastern Region, the Black Kshetra sect. Yi Xian. The Black Kshetra sect leader was taken aback. He frowned at Yi Fengtian, his eyes filled with uncertainty. Sect master knows my master? Yi Fengtian's expression brightened when he saw the Black Kshetra sect leader's frown. He hurriedly asked, Father, do you know his master? Wan Hongling hurriedly asked as well. It was obvious that the girl's heart was completely devoted to Yi Fengtian. Yi Fengtian was doing his best to find his master, so she naturally wanted to help. I don't know him. I've never heard of his name. The next moment, the Black Kshetra sect leader slowly shook his head. This greatly disappointed Yi Fengtian. He didn't think that even the Black Kshetra sect leader wouldn't know his master's name. However, Yi Fengtian didn't notice that the Black Kshetra sect leader's eyes were wandering. It was obvious that he didn't mean what he said. How could he not have heard of Yi Xian's name? This person had stirred up the entire central region. Even the strongest of all time had issued a kill order. News of this had already spread to the eastern region. However, the Black Kshetra sect leader didn't expect that the young man in front of him was Yi Xian's disciple. It was no wonder that Yi Fengtian could reach the immortal realm at such a young age. Since you don't know my master, I'll take my leave. I still have to look for him, so I can't stay here any longer. Yi Fengtian cupped his fists and was about to leave the Black Kshetra sect. Wait, the Black Kshetra sect leader rolled his eyes and said with a smile, although I've never heard of your master's name, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack if you go looking for him alone. Why don't you stay here for the time being? I'll ask the people in the sect to help you. Isn't that much faster than looking for him on your own? Wouldn't I be disturbing your sect? Yi Fengtian hesitated. He didn't know if he should stay or not. Ha ha. The Black Kshetra sect leader smiled and said, You're Hongling's good friend. This is a small matter for you. If I don't help you, my girl will pull my beard. Father, what are you talking about? Wan Hongling's face turned red. She stomped her feet and said shyly, a grown girl can't be kept at home. The Black Kshetra sect leader teased. Fengtian, my girl will be in your care. At this moment, Yi Fengtian was embarrassed. Naturally, he could tell what the Black Kshetra sect leader was implying. However, he didn't want to get involved in a romantic relationship. His face turned red. All right, leave the matter of looking for your master to me. You can stay here without worries. If there's any news about your master, I'll inform you immediately, the Black Kshetra sect leader said with a smile. Thank you, sect leader. Yi Fengtian cupped his fists and left. The Black Kshetra sect leader watched Yi Fengtian disappear from his sight. The smile on his face gradually disappeared and was replaced by a cold expression. Hongling, stay away from that brat in the future. Getting too close to him won't do you, or the Black Kshetra sect any good. Suddenly, the Black Kshetra sect leader said with a solemn expression. Father, you? Wan Hongling was stunned. She didn't expect her father's smiling face to suddenly become so serious. Remember what I told you. You can fall in love with anyone, even if it's an ordinary person. However, you can't fall in love with Yi Fengtian. Otherwise, you'll bring the Black Kshetra sect down. The Black Kshetra sect leader said sternly. Men, take the eldest miss back to her room. Without my permission, she's not allowed to take even half a step out of her room. The Black Kshetra sect leader ordered his men to take Wan Hongling away forcefully. He didn't give her any chance to question him. Father, why are you doing this? Wan Hongling knew things were not as simple as they seemed. She questioned the Black Kshetra sect leader loudly. Unfortunately, she didn't get any response. Yi Xian's disciple. Even the heavens are helping the Black Kshetra sect to rise. The Black Kshetra sect leader smiled coldly. He had always wanted to move the Black Kshetra sect to the Grand Central Region. After all, the Grand Central Region was filled with outstanding people. The spiritual qi here was several times denser than in the Eastern region. However, he had only opened 3 heavenly gates. He couldn't lead the Black Kshetra sect to the Grand Central Region. Although the Black Kshetra sect was a major sect in the Eastern region, it was nothing in the Grand Central Region. However, Yi Fengtian's arrival had given the Black Kshetra sect a chance to rise. He had just received news from the Grand Central Region that the legendary Yi Xian was still alive. Moreover, the Immortal Heaven Master had issued a decree that anyone who reported anything about Yi Xian to the Immortal Heaven Palace would be rewarded handsomely. If the Black Kshetra sect could establish a foothold in the Grand Central Region, the reward alone would allow the Black Kshetra sect's cultivation base to rise by several levels. Buzz! The Black Kshetra sect leader immediately took out a jade talisman and disappeared into thin air. It was a communication jade talisman. It was also a method to contact the Immortal Heaven Palace. Chapter 1694. On the other side, Yi Fengtian was sitting cross-legged and cultivating, but his mind was restless. Although the Black Kshetra Hierophant had treated him well and promised to find his master, Yi Fengtian still felt that something was wrong. His eyes. Yes, it was his eyes. Suddenly, Yi Fengtian's heart skipped a beat. He recalled his conversation with the Black Kshetra Hierophant. The Hierophant's eyes were hesitant. Although he seemed friendly, his eyes were very cold. Brother Yi. Suddenly, a figure rushed in. It was Wan Hongling. She took advantage of the guard's carelessness to sneak out of her room and went to Yi Fengtian's room. Brother Yi, you'd better leave. My father wants to harm you. Wan Hongling did not have time to explain to Yi Fengtian. She anxiously urged Yi Fengtian, afraid that he would be harmed. He knows my master, doesn't he? Yi Fengtian's face darkened. Leave now. If you don't leave now, it will be too late. Wan Hongling looked miserable. She did not know why her father told her not to interact with Yi Fengtian. However, from her father's cold expression, she could feel that her father did not have good intentions toward Yi Fengtian. The reason must be Yi Fengtian's master. As expected of a girl. Have you forgotten what I told you? Boom. The Black Kshetra Hierophant suddenly appeared and turned Yi Fengtian's room into ashes. Father. Wan Hongling's face was pale. She did not expect her father to show up here. I told you not to interact with him. What did you do? The Black Kshetra Hierophant said angrily. You know my master? Boom. Yi Fengtian stepped forward, and a powerful energy burst out. He stood in front of Wan Hongling and looked at the Black Kshetra Hierophant coldly. Looking at Yi Fengtian's cold face, the Black Kshetra Hierophant sneered. Of course I know your master. However, your master doesn't know a nobody like me. He's a ferocious person who dares to fight with even the strongest cultivators. Even the strongest cultivators of all time want to kill him. Where is he? When Yi Fengtian heard the Black Kshetra Hierophant, he remained silent. He should have known that his teacher wasn't an ordinary person. He could tell from the Black Kshetra Hierophant's attitude. It was just that Yi Fengtian had not expected his master to be this strong. Even the strongest could not wait to kill him. Where is he? He's in the central region. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see him, said the Black Kshetra sect leader with a cold smile. Boom! Suddenly, the Black Kshetra sect's leader threw a punch at Tong Tian. Tong Tian's immortal godly light burst out. Tribulation Transcender Transformation. Rumble! Yi Fengtian instantly activated the Tribulation Transcender Transformation. He had only opened one heavenly gate, while the Black Kshetra sect master had opened 3. Only the Tribulation Transcender Transformation could increase his combat strength. Bang! Although Yi Fengtian had the Tribulation Transcender Transformation to increase his combat strength, his combat experience was still too inexperienced. Moreover, the Black Kshetra sect master was 2 realms higher than him. Yi Fengtian simply wasn't his match. 3 days later, after a tough battle, Yi Fengtian was still suppressed by the Black Kshetra sect leader. His cultivation was sealed, and he was thrown into the water prison. For Immortal Realm elders were watching over him. However, the Black Kshetra sect leader did not have it easy either. Yi Fengtian's combat strength was too terrifying. He had almost been severely injured. Fortunately, he managed to suppress Yi Fengtian. All he had to do was wait for the people from the Undying Heaven Palace to arrive. On the other side, the Undying Heaven Palace. Good. An Immortal Realm elder was kneeling at the feet of the Undying Heaven Master. The Undying Heaven Master's face was filled with excitement. He had already told all the strongest that Yi Xian was still alive. He had even borrowed the Divine Mirror of Destiny and the Divine Mirror of Chaos. He had also found a way to suppress Yi Xian's revival. Now the only thing he had to do was to find Yi Xian and kill him. He had to get rid of this huge threat once and for all. However, Yi Xian was well hidden. Even with the 2 Divine Mirrors, he could not pinpoint Yi Xian's exact location. Just as the Undying Heaven Master was feeling anxious, the Black Kshetra sect in the eastern region sent a message saying that Yi Xian's disciple was in the Black Kshetra sect. This made the Undying Heaven Master extremely excited. Heaven Master, I'll send someone to bring Yi Fengtian back, the Immortal Realm Elder said. No, I'll go personally. The Undying Heaven Master shook his head slowly and rejected the Elder's suggestion. He was afraid that something might go wrong. He could only be at ease if he went personally. He could also use Yi Fengtian to force Yi Xian out. Rumble. On this day, the Undying Heaven Master walked out of the Undying Heaven Palace. He tore open the void and used the Great Shift technique to head to the eastern region. On the other side, Yi Xian was also at the final stage. He had devoured countless cultivation resources. The 10th gate of heaven was gradually taking shape. He was about to open it. Eastern region Black Kshetra sect. Rumble. The sky darkened and the earth rumbled. Rays of powerful divine light flashed across the sky as a majestic figure walked out from the starry sky. The arrival of an omnipotent being caused all living beings to kneel before him. The Black Kshetra sect leader led the entire sect to kneel on the ground. Their bodies trembled in excitement as they welcomed the arrival of the Undying Heaven Master. Greetings, Omnipotent Heaven Master. The Black Kshetra sect leader shouted the name of the Undying Heaven Master excitedly. He was extremely insignificant in front of an omnipotent being. The Black Kshetra sect leader was extremely excited. He had never thought that the omnipotent being would personally come to the Black Kshetra sect in the eastern region. This was a great honor for the Black Kshetra sect. It was enough to be recorded in the annals of the eastern region. The Black Kshetra sect leader's heart trembled. Where is Yi Fengtian? The Undying Heaven Master stood proudly in the sky. He had no interest in the ants beneath his feet. He was only here for Yi Xian's disciple. Reporting to the Heaven Master, I have imprisoned Yi Fengtian in the water prison. He is waiting for your judgment, the Black Kshetra sect leader hurriedly reported. Bring me there. Rumble. The undying heaven master descended from the sky and appeared in the Black Kshetra sect. The Black Kshetra sect leader hurriedly stood up and respectfully led the way. In the water prison of the Black Kshetra sect, the environment was dark and damp, and the water was dirty. Not even a ray of sunlight could shine into the water prison. Half of Yi Fengtian's body was submerged in dirty water. 8 chains pierced through his body and bound him tightly in the water prison. Big brother Yi. Creak. The door of the water prison opened. A beautiful figure quickly walked in. When Wan Hongling saw Yi Fengtian's miserable state, she could not help but cry. I'm sorry, big brother Yi. I'm really sorry. I didn't think father would do this. Wan Hongling jumped into the dirty water. Her face was covered in tears and guilt. She quickly swam to Yi Fengtian and took out a key to unlock the chains that bound him. Why are you here? Yi Fengtian asked weakly. Chapter 1695. The Undying Heaven Master came to the Black Kshetra sect. Father and the others went to welcome him. I took the opportunity to come and save you. You should run now, Wan Hongling said anxiously. My cultivation has been sealed. Where can I run to? Yi Fengtian said with a self-deprecating smile. Run as far as you can. If you really fall into the hands of the strongest, you won't have any chance. Even your teacher won't be able to save you. Wan Hongling kept shaking Yi Fengtian's arm, urging him to run away. With Wan Hongling's help, Yi Fengtian finally got out of the water prison. The two of them helped each other out of the water prison. Boom! All of a sudden, as soon as the two of them got out of the water prison, a powerful aura came crashing down on them. The two of them were rooted to the ground. You unfilial daughter. The Black Kshetra sect leader appeared with his entire sect. The Black Kshetra sect leader's face was pale and ashen as he glared at Wan Hongling. Father, please let brother Yi go. Plop. Wan Hongling knelt down and begged the Black Kshetra sect leader. However, she did not see the Undying Heaven Master standing beside the Black Kshetra sect leader. He was looking at Yi Fengtian intently. You damned girl. How dare you save him? Do you have any respect for your father? The Black Kshetra sect leader scolded her coldly. Then, he quickly knelt down at the Undying Heaven Master's feet and kowtowed. He said, Heaven Master, my daughter has been bewitched by this brat. Please forgive her. Dong dong dong. Step by step, the Undying Heaven Lord walked towards Yi Fengtian. With each step he took, heaven and earth rumbled. The might of the heavens pressed down on Yi Fengtian. Facing the Undying Heaven Master's aura, Yi Fengtian's mouth was bleeding. Just the aura alone was enough to make him suffer. His face was extremely pale. A deep sense of helplessness filled his heart. He could not help but kneel down and kowtow to the Undying Heaven Master. I can't kneel. I can't kneel. I am Yi Xian's disciple. I will never kneel before my master's enemy. Yi Fengtian roared in his heart. He relied on his unparalleled willpower to resist the Undying Heaven Lord's might. He gritted his teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. But in the end, he didn't kneel to the Undying Heaven Lord. You really are Yi Xian's disciple. Even your personality is somewhat similar to his. Boom! The Undying Heaven Lord stopped in his tracks. He looked down at Yi Fengtian, a sinister glint in his eyes. There was no need for the Undying Heaven Lord to ask any further. Just Yi Fengtian's stubborn personality and unyielding gaze made the Undying Heaven Lord believe that this kid in front of him was definitely Yi Xian's disciple. They were equally unyielding and unyielding. Why aren't you kneeling after seeing me? The Undying Heaven Lord asked coldly. I, Yi Fengtian, have only ever knelt before my teacher. Even if you are the strongest, you are not worthy of me kneeling before you, Yi Fengtian said fearlessly. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you? The Undying Heaven Lord narrowed his eyes. His destructive energy was faintly seeping out. The surrounding space began to distort. Ha ha ha. Facing the Undying Heaven Lord's murderous intent, Yi Fengtian laughed maniacally. The mighty strongest of all time is nothing but a despicable person. If you really have the ability, you should fight my teacher. Today, you are forcing a junior like me. Aren't you afraid that the world will laugh at you? Boom. As soon as Yi Fengtian finished speaking, the undying Heaven Lord's face darkened. He raised his hand, but didn't bring it down. Good, good, good. You really have a sharp tongue. You are exactly the same as your teacher. The undying Heaven Lord sneered. But don't worry. Yi Xian won't live for long. As soon as he dares to appear, I will tear him to pieces. He will never be able to reincarnate. Kill me if you have the ability. My teacher will avenge me sooner or later. He will kill you with his own hands, Yi Fengtian said hatefully. Kill me? Ha ha ha. The undying Heaven Lord looked as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He gloomily looked at Yi Xian and said, Those below the strongest are all ants. As long as Yi Xian dares to appear in front of me, you will know how weak he is. He will not be able to withstand a single blow. Yi Fengtian, the undying Heaven Lord is the strongest of all time. Killing your teacher is as easy as slaughtering a pig or a dog. If you kneel down and beg the undying Heaven Lord, perhaps he will spare your life. The Black Kshetra Hierophant scolded coldly. What a joke! Yi Fengtian sneered. Undying Heaven Lord, if you really had the ability, why would you use such despicable means to threaten me? The undying Heaven Lord felt ashamed of threatening a junior. However, that wasn't important. What was important was that he had to force Yi Xian to appear. This time, he was confident that he could kill Yi Xian. Pass down my decree. In 3 years, Yi Fengtian will be executed. Spread the news throughout the 5 regions. If Yi Xian doesn't appear in 3 years, he can just wait to collect this brat's corpse. The undying Heaven Lord ignored Yi Xian. His only goal was to force Yi Xian to appear and kill him for real. Once and for all, he would get rid of this great threat. As you wish, undying Heaven Lord. The Black Kshetra Hierophant played the role of a lackey. He ordered people to lock Yi Fengtian up again. He also locked up Wan Hongling to prevent this unfilial daughter of his from causing trouble again. Undying Heaven Lord, you are afraid. You are afraid that he will surpass you. That is why you want to kill him. Ha ha ha. Yi Fengtian was locked up again. However, he was laughing madly in the water prison. The undying Heaven Lord's face darkened. In the celestial court of the northern region of the great central region, rumble. On this day, the gates of the celestial Dharch palace opened. Yi Xian walked out slowly. He didn't release any energy. He looked like a mortal who had returned to his natural state. However, when Yi Xian's eyes opened and closed, the universe seemed to revolve in his eyes. His entire body emitted a mysterious and quiet feeling. Master! Master! After Yi Xian came out of seclusion, Fatso Huang and Gu Beichen were the first to arrive. Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang didn't want to be left behind. However, when the 4 appeared in front of Yi Xian and saw Yi Xian's mortal aura, they were stunned. They didn't know if Yi Xian had broken through or not. Thank you for your hard work. Yi Xian smiled and nodded. Master, your cultivation base? Li Taichu was at the peak of the immortal realm. He could feel Yi Xian's terrifying cultivation base before, but now, he couldn't see through Yi Xian. He only felt that Yi Xian was an ordinary mortal. This puzzled him. Just a little. Yi Xian smiled. However, a profound light flashed in his eyes. Only he knew how much he had grown during this seclusion. Master, there's news from the eastern region. The undying Heaven Lord has come to the Black Kshetra sect of the eastern region. He even passed down a decree saying that your disciple is in his hands. If you don't show up in 3 years, your disciple will die. Fatso Huang laughed. Nonsense. Master, since when did you have a disciple? Is the undying Heaven Lord crazy? Gu Beichen said coldly. Yi Xian was startled. What's his name? Yi Fengtian. Fatty Huang looked surprised and said, Sir, could this person really be your disciple? Him. Yi Xian's eyes moved. Memories of the past flooded his mind. Back then, the shadow of eternity destroyed the gate of heaven. He thought he didn't have much time left. Coincidentally, he met a child and imparted all his skills to him. The name Yi Fengtian was given to the child by him. Master, did you really have a disciple? Gu Beichen was also shocked. Master, the undying Heaven Lord wants to force you to show up. You must not be fooled. Li Taichu hurriedly warned him. Taichu is right. Master, you must not go. Jun Wushuang also reminded him. Suddenly Yi Xian smiled. However, his smile was very mysterious and deep. A faint halo of reincarnation appeared around him. An indescribable aura was faintly emitted from Yi Xian. I haven't gone to find him yet. Instead, he used Fengtian to force me to show up. Naturally, I have to meet him and see if he has the ability to kill me. Boom! Traceless immortal, boundless heaven and earth. Yi Xian took a step forward and disappeared. Fatso Huang and the others were shocked. They wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Wait, master's cultivation? Suddenly, Li Taichu's expression changed drastically. His eyes were filled with fear, as if he had thought of something terrible. Chapter 1696. Eastern Region Black Kshetra Sect. Strong winds blew across the sky and clouds gathered. At the peak of Black Kshetra Mountain, a cross was erected in the wind. Yi Fengtian was tied up on the cross. His body was covered in blood, and his face was pale. However, his eyes were still calm. He did not look weak, because of his injuries. The sect leader of the Black Kshetra sect led the entire sect to surround the Black Kshetra mountain. Everyone was excited as they looked at the undying Heaven Lord with reverence. Above the dome in the void, the undying Heaven Lord stood with his hands behind his back. He stood in the sky. Although he did not release any powerful energy, he gave people the feeling that he was like heaven and earth. Buzz! The Tongtian mirror pierced the ground and illuminated the universe. The two divine mirrors spanned across the sky, and the mysterious and simple mirror light spread out, covering hundreds of millions of miles of heaven and earth. No matter how powerful you were, you would not be able to escape from the reflection of the two divine mirrors. The sun rose and the moon set. The stars moved. Time was the most merciless of all. It flowed according to the unchanging law of time. The deadline of 3 years was quickly approaching. The undying Heaven Lord's originally calm expression also began to gradually change. Boy, your master is really heartless. He did not come to save you. Finally, the undying Heaven Lord spoke. He looked at Yi Fengtian indifferently. A murderous look flashed in his eyes. He had lost his patience and was ready to kill Yi Fengtian. Kill me if you want. You don't have to talk so much nonsense. However, even if I die in your hands today, you will have to come down and accompany me in the future, said Yi Fengtian coldly. You have some backbone. Unfortunately, everything is useless when you die. I will send you on your way. Rumble. The undying Heaven Lord raised his hand. It was as if he was lifting the sky. A terrifying destructive energy was brewing. He was going to turn Yi Fengtian into ashes with this attack. Undying Heaven Lord, as one of the strongest experts in history, you are making things difficult for a junior. You are really shameless. Suddenly, a calm voice came from the sky. The undying Heaven Lord was startled when he heard the voice. He turned around and looked at the sky. Thump, thump, thump. It was as if the eternal universe was trembling, as if the starry seas of the 9 heavens were exploding. A figure walked over from the horizon, causing the world to distort. Strands of mysterious ripples caused the laws of the world to collapse. The entire world suddenly turned dark. Is this it, teacher? Yi Fengtian's face was filled with excitement. However, he wasn't sure if his guess was correct. Back then, he had only spent a few days with Yi Xian. After so many years, he didn't know if his teacher was still the same as before. Rumble. Yi Xian was wearing a black robe. His expression was calm. He walked towards Yi Fengtian step by step. There was no energy around him. He looked just like an ordinary person. Wang. Yi Xian stepped forward and finally arrived in front of Yi Fengtian. Looking at the unfamiliar face in front of him, Yi Xian could vaguely see the outline of the child from back then. Not bad. You were able to walk out of the untainted world and cultivate to your current level. You do have my demeanor. Yi Xian smiled. Yi Xian waved his hand and rescued Yi Fengtian from the cross. This also made Yi Fengtian kneel on the ground. Little stone kowtows to you, master. Yi Fengtian kowtowed 3 times. He had thousands of words to say to Yi Xian, but he didn't know what to say. No one knew how he had survived for so many years. In order to find Yi Xian, he had suffered a lot and almost died many times. However, he had survived all kinds of dangers. He finally came to the chaotic world and reunited with Yi Xian. He had also finally caught up with Yi Xian's footsteps. Yi Xian, you are finally here. Suddenly, the undying Heaven Lord's sinister voice sounded out. His terrifying aura filled the heavens and earth, and his venomous and hateful gaze fell onto Yi Xian. Child, rest for a while. Yi Xian affectionately patted Yi Fengtian's shoulder. He stepped into the sky and stood in the firmament. Only then did he look at the undying Heaven Lord. You didn't die. Ever since I entered the primal chaos universe, you've always been my enemy. You tried so hard to kill me. I calculated that it's been around 500 million years, right? Yi Xian said calmly. Haha. The undying Heaven Lord laughed loudly and said, Be your enemy? You lowly dog, do you have the right to be my enemy? If it weren't for the forbidden escape art and your despicable methods, you would have died by my hands. But it doesn't matter. Since you dared to appear here today, you will die without a doubt. Even if you are as strong as the Tongtian, you will not be able to escape from my grasp. Yi Xian looked at the undying Heaven Lord's resentful expression and remained unperturbed. However, a trace of ruthlessness flashed through his eyes. In the eternal universe, the strongest are revered. In my opinion, this is nothing more than a joke. Today let me see just how strong you are. Come. Yi Xian calmly beckoned, as if he didn't care about the undying Heaven Lord at all. A trace of killing intent silently bloomed in Yi Xian's eyes. Oh, the undying Heaven Lord was stunned. From the moment Yi Xian arrived, he felt that something was amiss. It was all because Yi Xian was too calm. His calmness made him feel that there was a huge problem. However, the undying Heaven Lord didn't care. He was the strongest of the eternal universe. As long as Yi Xian didn't become the strongest, the other party was just an ant. There would be no miracles if he killed him mercilessly. Acting pretentious. Die. Boom boom boom. As if the universe was exploding, and the universe was flipping upside down, the undying Heaven Lord slapped out with his palm. That trace of supreme might was released, and the heaven and earth within 100 million miles were collapsing. A gigantic palm that covered the sky came crashing down on Yi Xian. This was the strongest attack. This was the ultimate attack. This was the ultimate attack. Bang bang bang. Millions and millions of miles of mountains and rivers were collapsing. The boundless earth was sinking. Magma was spewing out from the ground, and the boundless clouds were turning into water vapor. This was the most powerful attack since the ancient times. It could truly be said to be unrivaled in the universe, and no one could stop it. Master, watch out! Yi Fengtian roared in shock. His eyes were bloodshot. This attack was way too terrifying. Even a half-step ultimate warrior would die under this attack. Invulnerable. Suddenly, Yi Xian's entire body trembled as a halo of light that could shake the heavens, and the earth blossomed from his body. The heaven burial reincarnation waterfall revolved around him as his 5 fingers rumbled towards the sky, as if he wanted to grab and destroy the eternal universe. Boom! The sky collapsed. Huge stars fell, and a hole was opened in the sky. Yi Xian's attack broke through the sky. He actually took on the undying Heaven Lord's attack completely. The terrifying power of the explosion drowned billions of miles of heaven and earth. Countless mountains and rivers were turned into ashes. It was a scene that no one dared to look at directly. Chapter 1697. Impossible. Suddenly, a furious roar came from the sky. The undying Heaven Lord looked at Yi Xian in shock, only to find that Yi Xian was unharmed and was still facing him in the sky. What a fantasy! It was like a dream. The undying Heaven Lord was completely stunned on the spot. He was extremely suspicious as to why he wasn't able to kill Yi Xian, and instead allowed him to block his attack. One must know that he had used 50% of his strength. Not to mention Yi Xian, who was in the immortal realm. Even a half-step utmost being would die under his attack. Everyone below the utmost being was an ant. This was the iron law of the universe, and no one could break this iron law. The undying Heaven Lord had always known that Yi Xian was powerful, and had taken on his strongest attack before. However, Yi Xian was also severely injured and definitely wouldn't be as relaxed as he was now. Utmost being is only SOSO. Yi Xian said calmly. This attack did not cause him any harm. Suddenly, the undying Heaven Lord's expression changed. He finally realized something strange. He couldn't see through Yi Xian's cultivation. How was this possible? As an utmost being, he couldn't see through Yi Xian's cultivation. A bad feeling rose in the undying Heaven Lord's heart. Undying, if you want to fight, I'll wait for you in the universe. Boom. Yi Xian ascended to the sky in a single step and entered the chaotic universe. This made the undying Heaven Lord bewildered. However, as an utmost being, he naturally wouldn't be afraid of Yi Xian. Qi. Heaven and earth shifted and arrived in an instant. The undying Heaven Lord and Yi Xian appeared in the vast universe at almost the same time. In the vast universe of the starry sky, waves of stars surged and the stars rotated. However, with the appearance of Yi Xian and the undying Heaven Lord, the entire universe was trembling. There were even stars that were collapsing inch by inch. Yi Xian was dressed in black, and his hair fluttered behind his head. He looked at the undying Heaven Lord calmly with a cold glint in his eyes. How many years has it been? Yi Xian muttered to himself. He then looked up at the undying Heaven Lord and said, Actually, countless years have passed. I've been waiting for this day, the day I can truly compete with you. With just you. The undying Heaven Lord laughed and his emotions gradually calmed down. No matter what changes Yi Xian had happened, Yi Xian was definitely not his opponent. The undying Heaven Lord firmly believed in this point. Even if Yi Xian stepped into the half-step to the strongest, the other party would still die. Today, I'll let you have a look at the true profoundness of the immortal state. Yi Xian coldly smiled. What happened next instantly caused the undying Heaven Lord to be stunned on the spot. His entire aura became extremely chaotic. Bam! 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 9 heavenly gates opened up consecutively behind Yi Xian. There were even faint sounds of sutras being chanted in the universe. However, this was not the end. Rumble! The eternal universe was trembling. The vast starry sky was stagnating as the phantom of the 10th heavenly gate appeared. Along with the appearance of the 10th heavenly gate, Yi Xian's aura reached an extremely horrifying level. It affected the entire starry sky, causing countless stars to crumble. Rumble! Rumble! The 10 great heavenly gates spanned across the starry sky. The simple and unadorned halo of reincarnation swept over like a vast river. Yi Xian's entire body was wrapped in a vast halo of light. At this moment, he was releasing an incomparably shocking might. Eternal heavens, unparalleled in the present age. These words fully explained Yi Xian's might. His entire being was horrifying to the extreme. Just the aura from his body alone was enough to affect the operation of the laws of primal chaos. How could this be? The undying Heaven Lord roared out in shock. He could not believe his eyes. To think that he could see the 10th heavenly gate. What kind of joke was this? How could this be? The undying Heaven Lord was in a complete mess. Since the beginning of the chaotic universe, the 9 heavenly gates had been the limit. This was something that everyone in the chaotic universe had acknowledged. But what was he seeing? The 10th heavenly gate? This was beyond the undying Heaven Lord's knowledge. He could not believe it. The thing that shocked the undying Heaven Lord the most was that the aura that Yi Xian was releasing right now made him feel extremely threatened. He succeeded? In the Extreme Emotion Heavenly Palace, the Extreme Emotion Master was crying tears of joy. When Yi Xian opened the 10th heavenly gate, she instantly sensed Yi Xian's aura. Rumble! The Extreme Emotion Master took a step forward and directly tore through the endless space, heading towards Yi Xian and the undying Heaven Lord's location. The 10th heavenly gate? The chaotic and destiny spacetime were shocked. They all walked out of their orthodoxies and rushed towards Yi Xian's location. Almost at the same time, the other ultimate existences did not want to be left behind. They all headed towards the east region. Rumble! In an instant, the 7 ultimate existences arrived almost at the same time. When they saw the 10 heavenly gates behind Yi Xian, they were all speechless. So what if you open the 10 heavenly gates? Today I will destroy your body and soul. The undying Heaven Lord roared in rage as he charged towards Yi Xian. The supreme might of the ancient times was being released, as a terrifying force of nirvana whistled out. Fight! Yi Xian did not back down. After opening the 10 heavenly gates, he He was confident that he could fight the Undying Heaven Lord. This had always been his wish. Kill. The Undying Heaven Lord immediately unleashed a powerful technique. The destructive force turned into a 1,000,000 miles long river and swept towards Yi Xian. Eternal Reincarnation Fist. Rumble. Yi Xian punched out, and the 10 heavenly gates rotated. The Reincarnation Fist light destroyed the heavens and earth. This punch broke the boundaries of space-time and was not restricted by the chaos laws. Rumble. The destructive force of 1,000,000 miles exploded. The Reincarnation Fist light illuminated the starry sky, and Yi Xian's angry roar could be heard. Undying old bastard. We will fight to the death in today's battle. Bang! 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 Chaos shook the heavens and earth, killing all living beings. Yi Xian went all out, and his entire being went crazy. The Eternal Reincarnation Fist was earth-shattering, and every punch caused the starry sky to explode. Rumble. The Undying Heaven Lord also went crazy. He condensed a powerful technique, and the destructive force turned into a 1,000,000 miles long blade light that whistled towards Yi Xian. This blade cut through millions of miles of starry sky. Boom. This punch drowned the endless sea of stars. The two of them went crazy, and all the anger and resentment that had accumulated over the years were released. It could be said that the chaos trembled and wailed in the universe. How can he be so strong? The Lord of all spirits looked at him in shock. He has finally grown. The Lord of time and space laughed. Opening the 10th heavenly gate, could this be his trump card? The heaven-devouring demon lord's expression was uncertain. If he doesn't become the strongest, he is still too weak. He can't win against the Undying. The Lord of Destiny concluded coldly. 10 heavenly gates. The Lord of Chaos's face turned pale, and his eyes were filled with fear. It was as if he had thought of something terrifying. He looked at Yi Xian with a heavy gaze. Chapter 1698. Heaven and Earth, Annihilation of All Laws. Qi. Piercing through the universe and shattering the stars. The Undying Heaven Lord released an immeasurable amount of divine might. His saber slashed out, as though it was going to split the entire chaotic universe. That 1,000,000 miles long Nirvana saber light was terrifying. Heaven's Gate Immortal, my body immortal. Wung. His roar shattered the starry sky and the chaos. That reincarnation halo bloomed on Yi Xian's body as the 10 heavens gates rotated. Billions of miles of the chaotic universe trembled. Boom! The 1,000,000 miles long Nirvana saber light slashed out. However, at this moment, Yi Xian was too invincible. His face was ferocious, and he did not retreat at all. Clearly, he was going to take this peerless strike of the Undying Heaven Lord head-on. Is he crazy? The Master of Destruction said in shock. What an arrogant Yi Xian. He is simply too arrogant. The Master of Fate said coldly. One could not blame the two utmost beings for mocking him. One must know that the Undying Heaven Lord was an utmost being of the eternal era. Moreover, he had cultivated the Tao of Nirvana. What was Nirvana? As the name implied, everything in the world would turn into nothingness under the power of Nirvana. Wherever the power of Nirvana passed by, it could be said to destroy everything. But now, Yi Xian was going to take this strike of the Undying Heaven Lord head-on. Even though Yi Xian had opened the 10 heavens gates, he was still not an utmost being. If he was not crazy, what was he? Rumble. In the blink of an eye, the 1,000,000 miles long saber light swept out and drowned Yi Xian. The boundless starry sky was cut apart by the Undying Heaven Lord's saber, as a terrifying universe black hole appeared. Ha ha ha. In the next moment, the Undying Heaven Lord laughed maniacally. He did not believe that Yi Xian could survive. What a pity. Before the Undying Heaven Lord's laughter stopped, the reincarnation halo bloomed, and Yi Xian's figure appeared once again. He had walked out of the Nirvana saber light alive. Reincarnation immortal, my body immortal. Rumble. The heavenly extermination halberd appeared with a bang, and fell directly into Yi Xian's hands. Kill. A halberd pierced through the heavens, causing the starry space to explode. Yi Xian took a step forward, wielding the heaven-punishing halberd as he lunged towards the Undying Heaven Lord. The heaven-burying reincarnation sword revolved around him at a terrifying speed. You're courting death. The Undying Heavenly Lord roared in anger. The undying heavenly blade appeared in his hand, and he slashed it towards Yixian. Clang! Clang! The starry sky was suppressed and the river of stars was shattered. The two of them were engaged in a chaotic battle. The two divine weapons clashed against each other, and various ruthless and ferocious techniques emerged one after another, completely shattering the starry sky and universe within 1,000,000,000,000 miles. Puff! Undying Heaven Lord's blade slashed open Yixian's chest. A large amount of blood splattered on his face, causing him to laugh even more malevolently. You're laughing too soon. Puff! Yixian roared. The heaven-punishing halberd directly pierced through the undying Heaven Lord's nirvana energy, leaving a bloody hole in her shoulder. The two figures crossed each other, and large amounts of blood splattered through the starry sky. The cruelty of their battle was simply shocking. Undying rebirth. Wung. In the next moment, the undying Heaven Lord roared ferociously. The nirvana energy that filled the heavens and earth erupted. Her pierced shoulder was instantly healed, and there was no visible injury at all. Heaven burial indestructible body. Wung. Yixian's body was flawless. Mysterious halos circulated around his body, and the cut-open chest was recovering at a terrifying speed. Just what cultivation level is he at? At this moment, the 7 utmost powerful beings were shocked. The master of all spirits muttered in shock. He looked at Yixian with an extremely shocked expression. It was fine if the undying Heaven Lord was so strong. After all, he was an utmost powerful being in the 4th association. But who was Yixian? He was just a living being in the 10th Yuan Hui. He wasn't even an utmost powerful being in the eternal era. But he was actually not at a disadvantage in the battle with the undying Heaven Lord. This was simply a fantasy. Half-step utmost powerful being. Is this the strength of someone who has opened the 10 great heavenly gates? The master of primal chaos muttered. Impossible. He definitely can't be this strong. Suddenly, the heaven-devouring demon master rebuked coldly. Then his eyes lit up. Those below utmost powerful are all ants. Even if he's above half-step utmost powerful, he's still not an utmost powerful being in the eternal era. How can he be on par with the undying Heaven Lord? Heavenly gates. Look at his heavenly gates. The master of primal chaos had a complicated expression. He pointed at Yixian's 10 great heavenly gates. This caused the other utmost powerful beings to look over as well. Do you see it? The 10 great heavenly gates are endless and provide him with endless energy. Although his cultivation level is not as high as the undying Heaven Lord, it's impossible for the undying Heaven Lord to kill him. At this point, the master of primal chaos paused for a moment. A look of shock flashed across his eyes. Moreover, he has comprehended the reincarnation profound. This reincarnation profound can restrain the undying Heaven Lord's nirvana energy. Silence. Silence. A deathly silence. As the master of primal chaos's words fell, the utmost powerful beings present fell silent. However, their gazes became extremely complicated as different thoughts appeared in their minds. However, the same thought appeared in the hearts of these utmost powerful beings. From now on, apart from the 8 utmost powerful beings, Yixian would be on the same level as them. If they still wanted to kill Yixian like they did in the past, such a situation would not happen again. This was because Yixian could truly contend with them. If this person doesn't die, he will become a huge threat to us sooner or later. Suddenly, the master of fate spoke coldly. His merciless eyes of fate flickered with murderous intent. He even took a step forward. Fate, what are you doing? The master of time and space frowned slightly, and took a step forward as well. Clearly, he could tell that the master of fate wanted to attack Yixian. Time and space, are you trying to stop me? The master of fate asked coldly. Fate. The grudge between the two of them should naturally be settled by the two of them. If you really want to attack Yixian, then wait until the two of them have settled their grudge. The master of time and space did not budge an inch. Clearly, he had the intention to protect Yixian. Fate, do you really think that I don't exist? The master of extreme love took a step forward. Clearly, he would not give the master of fate the chance to attack. Yixian deserves to die. Boom. The master of heaven-devouring demon took a step forward and stood side by side with the master of fate. The four utmost powerful beings faced each other in the starry sky. The atmosphere instantly became heavy. A formless aura of utmost power was faintly released. All it took was a fuse to ignite a chaotic battle between the utmost powerful beings. Destruction. This Yi Xian is the previous Yi Xiaoyu. He played you like a fiddle. Don't you want to kill him? Suddenly, the Master of Heaven devouring demon looked at the Master of Destruction with a cold smile. This caused the Master of Destruction's expression to darken. Devouring Heaven, I don't care who he is. The matter between the two of you has nothing to do with me. The Master of Destruction flatly refused. He did not want to participate in this dispute. It did not matter whether Yi Xian was Yi Xiaoyu or not. After all, he did not want to offend someone like Yi Xian. What are you doing for one Yi Xian? The Master of Primal Chaos scolded in a deep voice. Today he is fighting the undying Immortal. We're just spectators. If any of you have a grudge against him, you can find him for a fight in the future. If we end up in a chaotic battle because of him, won't we become a joke? Chapter 1699. As soon as the Master of Chaos finished speaking, the Master of Destiny and the heaven-devouring demon master retracted their killing intent and looked coldly at the two of them. Actually, it was not because the Master of Chaos had spoken that the two of them stopped. The two of them knew that even if they attacked forcefully, with the presence of the two of them, there would be no result. Moreover, Yi Xian was no longer as weak as he was in the past. How could they kill him just because they wanted to? This was the real reason why the two of them stopped. On the other side, in the vast starry sky, in the boundless universe, Yi Xian stood with his halberd while the undying Heaven Lord glared at him fiercely. The killing intent released by the two of them affected the entire starry sky. Terrifying cracks appeared continuously in the starry sky. Yi Xian, I really regret it. If I had made up my mind to kill you back then, would things have turned out this way? The undying Heaven Lord roared fiercely. Regret? Yi Xian laughed, but his laughter was very sarcastic. Undying, you still don't understand. From the beginning until now, you couldn't kill me at all. It was only under your pressure that I was able to grow to this level. To be honest, I really have to thank you. If you hadn't forced me to do so, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to open the 10th gate. Yi Xian sneered. Looking at the sarcastic smile on Yi Xian's face, the undying Heaven Lord's face turned even more ferocious. Yi Xian, do you really think that you're worthy of being my opponent, just because you've opened the 10 gates? The undying Heaven Lord's voice became even more sinister. Yi Xian, do you know what it means to be the strongest? Today, I'll tell you what it means to be the strongest throughout the ages. I'll also let you know how big the gap between you and me is. The undying Heaven Lord roared cruelly. A mysterious aura faintly bloomed from his body. Even his nirvana power was covered by this aura. Yi Xian's expression changed as a sense of fear rose in his heart. He abruptly raised his head to look at the starry sky, only to find that the starry sky above his head had dimmed. The strongest throughout the ages, reigning supreme in the universe. The undying Heaven Lord stretched out his arms. His entire being seemed to have ascended to a higher level. The entire chaos verse was rumbling, and mysterious chanting of sutras could be heard. Yi Xian is dead for sure. On the other side, the Master of Fate spoke coldly. As a supreme being, he naturally knew what the undying Heaven Lord was doing right now. Be careful. He is summoning the heart of chaos. Extreme Love King's face changed. He warned Yi Xian. Rumble. All of a sudden, the primal chaos trembled, and the laws of the universe went berserk. An indescribably terrifying energy bloomed from the undying Heaven Lord's body. The will of the primordial chaos descended. At this moment, the undying Heaven Lord seemed to have merged with the entire chaos verse. Just the aura he released caused Yi Xian's heart to tremble. What is the strongest? The strongest are those who can mobilize the power of the chaos verse for battle. Even if you have the ability of Tong Tian, you are nothing but an ant in front of the chaos verse. The undying Heaven Lord roared cruelly. The terrifying laws of primal chaos circulated around his body. He, who had summoned the heart of chaos, had perfectly merged with the chaos verse at this moment. His body was like the universe, unparalleled in the world. The strongest aspect of the strongest throughout the ages wasn't the cultivation of supreme powers, but the ability to borrow the power of the chaos verse. This was the most unfathomable aspect of the strongest throughout the ages. Yi Xian, go to hell! Rumble! The undying Heaven Lord roared. He waved his hand and sent out a law of primal chaos. This law turned into a mysterious brilliance that broke through the boundaries of time and space. It went straight for Yi Xian. You are too naive. Rumble! Facing this attack from the undying Heaven Lord, Yi Xian's lips curled into a strange smile. He quickly formed a seal with both hands, and a law of reincarnation was born in his hands. Break for me. Rumble! Eternal reincarnation, burying the heavens and destroying the earth. This law of reincarnation was too mysterious. Although it didn't release any substantial power, it turned the law power from the undying Heaven Lord into nothingness. How is this possible? What kind of joke was this? The undying Heaven Lord roared in shock. He couldn't believe his eyes. He had summoned the heart of chaos and borrowed the power of the chaos verse, but Yi Xian had blocked it? I knew it would turn out like this. Suddenly, the Master of Chaos shook his head bitterly. What is going on? How could he block the undying Heaven Lord's attack? The heaven-devouring demon lord was shocked. Reincarnation! It's reincarnation! The law of reincarnation that Yi Xian comprehended is not in the laws of the chaos verse. The undying Heaven Lord only borrowed the power of the laws. Naturally, it won't work on him. The Master of Chaos explained slowly. What? The faces of the utmost powerful beings changed upon hearing this. The undying Heaven Lord is too naive. If he had only used his utmost power to kill Yi Xian, he might have had a chance. But he used the power of the chaos verse. It's useless against Yi Xian, the Master of Chaos said in a deep voice. Undying old thief, go to hell! Suddenly, Yi Xian's thunderous roar rang out. He held the heaven-punishing halberd and rose into the sky, turning into a beam of light that shot towards the undying Heaven Lord. Rumble! The halberd pierced the heavens and destroyed the world. At this moment, the undying Heaven Lord had already come to his senses. He knew that he had done something stupid and exposed a huge flaw to Yi Xian. Facing Yi Xian's killing halberd, he wanted to block it. But Yi Xian's speed was simply too fast. There was no way he could block it in time. Poof! The halberd pierced through the heart and dyed the starry sky red. Under the effect of the samsara mysteries, Yi Xian directly ignored the primal chaos laws on the undying Heaven Lord's body. His halberd directly pierced through the undying Heaven Lord's heart. Ah! The undying Heaven Lord howled in anger. His heart was pierced through, causing him to feel extreme hatred. Fortunately, he had an extremely powerful body. Although this kind of injury wasn't light, it wasn't enough to take his life. Bang! The undying Heaven Lord dispersed the heavenly heart of chaos, and the power of nirvanic extermination erupted once more. He ignored his pierced heart and sent a palm strike towards Yi Xian. Bang! Yi Xian was directly sent flying by this palm strike. However, he ruthlessly pulled out his halberd from the undying Heaven Lord's chest. A terrifying bloody hole appeared on the undying Heaven Lord's chest. Puff! A mouthful of fresh blood spurted out from the undying Heaven Lord's mouth. He instantly activated the undying regeneration art. His shattered heart was rapidly recovering, but his face was still pale to the extreme. On the other side, Yi Xian wasn't in a good state either. Although he had opened the 10 great heavenly gates, he didn't have an extremely powerful body. The undying Heaven Lord's all-out attack almost shattered his body. Fortunately, the 10 great heavenly gates rotated at a terrifying speed, stabilizing his body and preventing him from shattering in the starry space. I'll take your life. The undying Heaven Lord roared in anger. He was actually injured by an ant. This was the greatest insult to him. He was like a mad ancient beast, rushing towards Yi Xian. Let's see if you'll die or I'll die. Yi Xian was similarly mad. His eternal reincarnation fist punched out. The two of them turned into beams of light that tangled together, causing the entire starry space to collapse. Bang! The starry space exploded, and all living things sank into oblivion. As the two of them clashed, a terrifying chaotic black hole appeared. and the two of them were directly sent flying. Wah! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Yixian's mouth. On the other hand, the undying Heaven Lord was also bleeding from the corner of his mouth. However, his expression was malevolent to the extreme, and his eyes were as red as blood. Chapter 1700. Almost. Just a little bit more. The starry sky was silent, drowning in all sounds. Yixian wiped off the blood from the corner of his mouth slowly. His eyes were terrifyingly deep. There was still a gap between him and the undying Heaven Lord. After a brutal battle, both of them were truly enraged. They were truly ruthless, wanting to take each other's lives. But through this battle, Yixian could feel that although he had the strength to fight against the undying Heaven Lord, he was still inferior to the undying Heaven Lord in terms of cultivation. However, in terms of cultivation, he was indeed slightly weaker than the undying Heaven Lord. Let alone killing the undying Heaven Lord, it was unrealistic for him to even defeat him. Below the undying Heaven Lord, above the half-step undying Heaven Lord, this was Yixian's level. After opening the 10th gate, he was much stronger than the half-step undying Heaven Lord. But he was still a little weaker than the eternal Heaven Lord. However, the current Yixian was already fearless of the eternal Heaven Lord. He could truly challenge the eternal Heaven Lord. This was also the most terrifying part of opening the 10th gate. Yixian, die for me. Filled with extreme hatred and anger, the undying Heaven Lord attacked once again. He couldn't kill Yixian, and instead fought to a draw. This was the greatest humiliation to him. Rumble. The undying Heaven Lord was going berserk. He seemed to have gone mad as he attacked Yixian. The starry sky was being destroyed in a terrifying manner, as he swung out powerful techniques one after another, without any regard for his life. Heaven-burying reincarnation. Yixian's roar shattered the starry sky. The 10 gates rotated, and rays of reincarnation light shone down, protecting Yixian, making him look even more invincible. I'll take your life. Yixian roared madly. Although he knew he couldn't kill the undying Heaven Lord, he was still unwilling to give up until the last moment. Rumble. Yixian and the undying Heaven Lord clashed once again. That terrifying energy leaked out from the two of them. It could be said that the battle had caused the starry sky to collapse and all living things to perish. Bang bang bang. The undying Heaven Lord sent Yixian flying with a single punch, causing his body to crack open and soak in blood. Yixian returned an eye for an eye, sending the undying Heaven Lord stumbling back with a punch. Cracks appeared on his body, and he was not in a good state either. The most powerful technique, Heaven Burial Cascade, was unleashed one after another. The two of them exchanged vicious attacks, both wanting to kill the other. From the sky to the ground, from the starry sky to the chaotic world, and from the chaotic world to the boundless starry sky. The battle between the two of them shocked the entire chaotic world. The terrifying aura made all living things tremble. This battle caused all living things to perish, which was simply frightening. Bang! A strike pierced through the sky, and blood splattered everywhere. Both of them collided once more in the depths of the boundless starry sky, and then both of them were blasted flying. At this moment, Yixian was bathed in blood, and there was not a single spot on his body that was intact. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. On the other hand, although the undying Heaven Lord was not as tragic as Yixian, his body was also filled with terrifying cracks. Even the surrounding Nirvana power was much weaker. This was a battle without a conclusion, and there was no way for a victor to emerge. Indeed, the undying Heaven Lord was stronger than Yixian. However, this strength was not by much, and the gap was not difficult to cross. It was impossible for the undying Heaven Lord to kill Yixian. On the other side, Yixian could not defeat the undying Heaven Lord. He, who had opened the 10th heaven gate, could only wrestle with the strongest. He was in an invincible position. Almost at the same time, Yixian and the undying Heaven Lord understood their situation. Now that neither of them could do anything to the other, if they continued to fight like this, there would be no outcome. However, the two of them could not back down now, and neither of them could back down first. Although the undying Heaven Lord was furious that he couldn't kill Yixian, if he took the initiative to stop, this matter would affect his reputation. If word of this spread to the ears of all living beings, wouldn't people think that he was afraid of Yi Xian? If the undying Heaven Lord did not back down, naturally, Yi Xian would not back down either. This was also the reason why the two of them could not end this battle in a frenzy. At this moment, not only did the two of them understand their situation, but the strongest who were watching this battle also understood the situation. However, a few of them had solemn expressions, and all of their gazes were on Yi Xian. A great enemy had appeared. This was unprecedented in all of history. Ever since the creation of the chaotic universe, there had never been anyone who was not an ultimate, who could fight with an ultimate, and remain invincible. Today, they finally witnessed this miracle, and also witnessed Yi Xian breaking this iron law of the chaotic universe. He was not an ultimate, but he could challenge an ultimate, and even wrestle with them, rendering them helpless. If this person is not eliminated, he will become a great threat. Suddenly, the Master of Fate muttered. His merciless eyes flickered as he looked at Yi Xian with a solemn expression. Yi Xian was already so terrifying after opening the 10 heaven gates. If he opened the 11th, or even the 12th heaven gate, how terrifying would Yi Xian be? At this moment, this question was not only in the Master of Fate's heart, but also in the hearts of all the strongest. No one dared to think about it, because it was extremely terrifying. Yi Xian, I will definitely kill you. I definitely will. In the starry sky, the undying Heaven Lord's face was malevolent and vicious. His eyes were filled with hatred as he stared at Yi Xian. His voice sent chills down one's spine. This is also what I want to say to you. Yi Xian growled. A sinister light flashed in Yi Xian's eyes, as he looked at the undying Heaven Lord with murderous intent. Boom! Almost at the same time, Yi Xian and the undying Heaven Lord exploded with murderous intent once more. Terrifying auras burst forth, and it was clear that they were going to continue fighting. Yi Daoyu, brother undying, please stop for now. All of a sudden, before the two of them could fight, the Master of Chaos suddenly appeared in the middle of the battlefield. This caused their murderous intent to slow down slightly. Yi Daoyu. Outside the battlefield, when the few strongest heard the words of the Master of Chaos, they held their breaths, as their faces were filled with astonishment. This was especially so for the heaven-devouring demon master, and the Master of Fate. Their faces were filled with astonishment. When the words Brother Dao came out of the mouth of the strongest, it was definitely not as simple as it seemed. It was an acknowledgement of Yi Xian, and an honorific that placed Yi Xian on the same level as him. Clearly, in the eyes of the Master of Chaos, Yi Xian was already on the same level as the strongest. Even though Yi Xian's cultivation state was still slightly weaker than the strongest, this Yi Daoyu was enough to show the attitude of the Master of Chaos towards Yi Xian. Chaos, what are you trying to do? The undying Heaven Lord frowned. The fact that the Master of Chaos addressed Yi Xian as Brother Dao made him extremely unhappy. However, he could not blame the Master of Chaos. Even though he was unwilling to admit it, putting aside the grudge between him and Yi Xian, the undying Heaven Lord knew that Yi Xian did indeed have the qualifications to be on the same level as the strongest. Chapter 1701. Fellow Taoists, even if you two continue fighting, there won't be any results. Why don't I be the mediator, and let the two of you stop here? The Master of Primal Chaos said solemnly. Stop! The undying Heaven Lord's face turned gloomy, as he glared at Yi Xian with unwillingness. However, he knew that he couldn't do anything to Yi Xian. All right, Primal Chaos. Today, I will give you face and not bicker with him. The appearance of the Master of Primal Chaos also gave the undying Heaven Lord a way out, because he knew that he couldn't kill Yi Xian. Even if he continued to fight, there wouldn't be any results. Undying, you are truly a hypocrite. Do you have the ability to kill me? Boom. The 10 heavenly gates slowly dissipated behind Yi Xian. Yi Xian's lips curled into a mocking smile. This infuriated the undying Heaven Lord, but he didn't attack again. Yi Xian, don't be complacent. If you don't become the strongest, you will always be an ant. Today I admit that I can't kill you, but don't be happy too early. Sooner or later, I will grind your bones to dust, and make you unable to reincarnate." The Undying Heaven Lord scolded. "Heh." Yi Xian laughed. His laughter was extremely mocking as he said, "Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue? You don't know how many times you've said such nonsense. But aren't I still alive and well? Undying, don't be in such a hurry. Today's battle is just the beginning. We still have a long way to go. The grudges between us will be settled sooner or later." Yi Xian sneered. As Yi Xian's words faded, the Undying Heaven Lord's face turned ashen and red. His eyes were terrifyingly sinister. However, if one were to observe carefully, they would discover that the Undying Heaven Lord's gaze was erratic. A trace of heaviness flashed past his eyes, but he concealed it very well. One had to say, today, Yi Xian's battle prowess truly made the Undying Heaven Lord feel pressured. A great sense of danger filled his heart. Yi Xian's growth speed was something the Undying Heaven Lord had been watching. Back then, Yi Xian was pitifully weak, but now, he was almost on par with him. The Undying Heaven Lord was worried that if Yi Xian's cultivation continued to grow, he would surpass him sooner or later. At that time his life. All of a sudden, the Undying Heaven Lord felt a chill run down his spine, as a chill rose from the bottom of his heart. His fear of Yi Xian had reached an unprecedented level. "Humph." The Undying Heaven Lord snorted coldly. He pretended to be calm as he turned and left. In an instant, he vanished from the starry sky. However, everyone could tell that the Undying Heaven Lord was under immense pressure. Today's battle between him and Yi Xian seemed to be a draw, with the Undying Heaven Lord having the upper hand. However, all the utmost powerful beings present could tell that Yi Xian's potential had already surpassed the Undying Heaven Lord. The grudge between the two of them in the future would not be so simple. As the saying went, without the lips, the teeth would feel cold. Even though today's battle was between Yi Xian and the Undying Heaven Lord, if they were in the Undying Heaven Lord's shoes, the outcome would probably be the same. Among the utmost powerful beings present, the Undying Heaven Lord was definitely one of the strongest. If even he could not kill Yi Xian, it would be even more impossible for the rest of them. At this moment, "Yi Xian, you're on your own now," the Master of Fate said indifferently. He looked deeply at Yi Xian, before taking a step forward and disappearing into the starry sky. "Yi Xian, after today's farewell, I will personally pay him a visit," the heaven-devouring demon master said coldly before leaving. Obviously, now that Yi Xian had grown to such an extent, he was no longer someone who could be suppressed by martial strength. Moreover, the heaven-devouring demon master was very concerned about the Calamity Immortal technique. Sooner or later, he would cross paths with Yi Xian again. Although Yi Xian had displayed his might in the battle with the Undying Heaven Lord, the Master of Fate, and the heaven-devouring demon master were only a little wary of Yi Xian. They were not afraid of Yi Xian, the strongest of all time. To be able to become an utmost powerful being, one must have an invincible Tao heart. Moreover, the Master of Fate and the heaven-devouring demon master believed that they were only stronger than the Undying Heaven Lord. Although Yi Xian had grown to a point where he was almost on par with an utmost powerful being, he was still far from that level. To put it bluntly, the battle between Yi Xian and the Undying Heaven Lord today was because the Undying Heaven Lord had not made up his mind. If the Undying Heaven Lord was willing to risk his life, he might have been able to kill Yi Xian. After all, the word utmost powerful wasn't just for show. They had to have an unparalleled cultivation base. Yi Daoyu, it is extremely rare for you to be able to open one of the 10 heavenly gates. I hope that you can benefit the chaotic universe and stop arguing with the Undying Heaven Lord. If you are willing, I can mediate for the two of you, the Master of Primal Chaos said. No need. Yi Xian coldly refused. He did not accept the Master of Primal Chaos' good intentions at all, because Yi Xian clearly remembered that he was the one who lent the Primal Chaos Divine Mirror to the Undying Heaven Lord. Otherwise, the Undying Heaven Lord wouldn't have been able to kill Yi Xian with his Heaven Calamity transformation. If the Undying Heaven Lord hadn't lent him 2 Primal Chaos Divine Mirrors, he wouldn't have been killed by the Undying Heaven Lord. Yi Xian hadn't forgotten about this matter. It had always been deeply engraved in his heart. Looking at Yi Xian's indifferent attitude, the master of primal chaos expression changed slightly. In the end, he could only sigh helplessly. Then, he turned into a beam of light and left. Yi Xian, you are indeed powerful. The master of all spirits took a deep look at Yi Xian, before turning into a beam of light and leaving. As a Tao ascendant of the 10th Eon, he also felt an enormous pressure at this moment. The 10th Eon, the true ruler, was the master of all spirits. He was known to be invincible in the current era. He was also a Tao ascendant of the 10th Eon. However, Yi Xian's appearance gave the master of all spirits a great deal of pressure. Although Yi Xian wasn't an omnipotent, his battle with the undying Heaven Lord today made the master of all spirits extremely wary of Yi Xian. As the saying went, a mountain couldn't hold two tigers. Yi Xian's appearance threatened his position as the master of the 10th Eon. This also made him think about some things that would happen in the future. However, the master of all spirits wasn't very worried. After all, he was the master of the 10th Eon. He had achieved Tao Ascendant in the 10th Eon, and was supported by the will of the entire primal chaos universe. Therefore, he was undefeatable. No one could defeat him in the 10th Eon. Yi Daoyu, this day has finally come. The master of spacetime walked over with a smile on his face. Sir. The master of extreme love smiled. She only said these two words, but there was a hint of joy in her eyes. Many thanks to the two of you for protecting me for so many years. Yi Xian thanks both of you. Yi Xian cupped his hands and bowed to the two omnipotent. If it wasn't for the master of spacetime and the master of extreme love's help, perhaps he wouldn't have been able to reach this step today. Sir, there's no need for this. The master of extreme love hurriedly avoided. Yi Daoyu, you have finally caught up to the omnipotent. You can truly fear no one now. The master of spacetime nodded in satisfaction. Chapter 1702. Yi Xian chatted with the two supreme beings for a while before the two supreme beings took their leave. However, before the spacetime master left, Yi Xian opened his mouth. He wanted to mention the heaven-breaking cauldron to the spacetime master, but he swallowed his words. Yi Xian wanted to ask the spacetime master for the heaven-breaking cauldron, but he thought about it and held back, because it would put the spacetime master in a difficult position. Although the two of them had a close relationship, the heaven-breaking cauldron was a supreme treasure. If Yi Xian asked for it, he would be forcing the spacetime master to give it to him. The time was not right. Yi Xian could only sigh in his heart. He could only find the right time to mention it. Now is not the time to ask for the heaven-breaking cauldron. All the supreme beings left. Yi Xian gradually calmed down, and a deep look flashed across his eyes. Today's battle with the immortal Heaven Lord was not just about the grudge between the two of them. To a large extent, it was also Yi Xian's deterrence to the other supreme beings. To put it bluntly, although Yi Xian was not a supreme being, they could not suppress him. He also had the foundation to fight against the supreme beings. After this battle, Yi Xian could finally establish himself in the chaotic world, and no longer have to look at the supreme beings. However, Yi Xian felt a little regretful. If he could kill the immortal Heaven Lord today, the situation today would be different. Unfortunately, opening the 10 heavenly gates to fight against the supreme beings was already the limit. According to Yi Xian's calculations, he would have to open the 11th heavenly gate, at least if he wanted to kill the supreme beings of all time. The 11th heavenly gate? Yi Xian murmured. A deep look flashed across his eyes, and there was a faint throbbing in his heart. Yi Xian had a feeling that if the 11th heavenly gate could be compared to the supreme beings, it could even kill them. Could the 12th heavenly gate be compared to the taboo? When this thought flashed across Yi Xian's mind, he immediately rejected this absurd idea. Impossible. There was no chance of that happening. Even if he opened the 12th heaven's gate, he would never be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Forbidden Realm. This was because Yi Xian clearly remembered that ancient Shadow had suppressed the 10 strongest beings all by himself. If it wasn't for the appearance of the chaotic heavenly punishment, he would have almost killed the 10 strongest beings. However, Yi Xian had a theory. Perhaps when the 12 heavens gates merged into one, he would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the taboo. However, Yi Xian was thinking about something. After the 12 heavenly gates merged into one, would the next realm be the half-step omnipotent? No. Absolutely impossible. After opening the 10th gate of heaven, he could already fight against the strongest. Although he was not as strong as the strongest, he was already extremely terrifying. Yi Xian had a feeling that when he broke through to the next realm, there would definitely be an earth-shattering change. Not half-step to the strongest. He wasn't the strongest of all time. Instead, it was a realm that he had never known. It was just that Yi Xian was at a loss about this realm. But he was secretly looking forward to it. Why Yi Xian slowly exhaled a turbid breath. He calmed himself down. It was still too early to think about these things. His current mission was to find a way to open the 11th gate of heaven. Boom! Yi Xian took a step forward and disappeared into the vast starry sky. Eastern region Black Kshetra sect. Figures flickered, and killing intent filled the air. The Black Kshetra sect leader led the entire sect and surrounded Yi Fengtian. The Black Kshetra sect leader's face was terrifyingly gloomy. His eyes were also filled with coldness as he looked at Yi Fengtian. Ever since Yi Xian and the Immortal Heaven Master left, the Black Kshetra sect leader fully understood what it meant to be a lackey. He trapped Yi Fengtian here and waited for the Immortal Heaven Master to return victoriously. In his heart, he was looking forward to what kind of reward the Immortal Heaven Master would give him. Yi Xian is dead. He won't be able to come back, the Black Kshetra sect leader said coldly. My master will not be defeated, Yi Fengtian said calmly. Yi Fengtian calmly spoke. His expression was solemn and respectful because in his heart, Yi Xian was the strongest person. Shameless boasting, the Black Kshetra sect leader sneered. Rumble. All of a sudden, the sky darkened as the wind howled. A figure walked out from the starry sky. The Black Kshetra sect leader's spirits were lifted. He looked up and saw the figure. He thought the Immortal Heaven Master had returned after killing Yi Xian. However, in the next moment, the Black Kshetra sect leader's expression changed drastically. He rubbed his eyes hard, unable to believe what he was seeing. Yi Xian? How is he still alive? The Black Kshetra sect leader cried out in fear when he saw Yi Xian. He retreated in fear and looked around for the Immortal Heaven Master. Master! Yi Fengtian controlled his emotions when he saw Yi Xian return. He bowed deeply at Yi Xian. Child, I've made you suffer. Yi Xian walked up to Yi Fengtian and patted him on the shoulder. As for the Black Kshetra sect leader and the others, Yi Xian ignored them. It's not hard. It's not hard to see you again, Master, Yi Fengtian said in a trembling voice. Looking at Yi Xian could vaguely see the outline of the child he used to be. After so many years, the simple child had grown into a young man. Even Yi Xian sighed. Back then, Yi Xian's heavenly gate was destroyed. He thought his future was over. That was why he left behind his inheritance and passed it to the child. He did not expect that after hundreds of millions of years, the child would walk out of the primeval age and come here. Yi Xian did not know what the child had gone through over the years. However, since he was able to cultivate to the immortal realm, he must have gone through a lot. You've made me proud to be able to reach this stage with just a mortal body, Yi Xian said with relief. Yi Xian had a mortal body. Only he knew how difficult it was for him to cultivate to this stage. Master, when we parted, I said that I would follow your footsteps. I will definitely come to the chaotic world, Yi Fengtian said. It's all in the past. Come with me. Yi Xian nodded. He was ready to leave with Yi Fengtian. However, before he left, he had to do something. Kill. That's right. Kill. Rumble. Yi Xian raised his 5 fingers slightly. The sky within hundreds of millions of miles trembled. A giant palm appeared and was about to kill everyone in the Black Kshetra sect. Spare me. Spare me. The Black Kshetra sect leader's face turned pale as he knelt on the ground. Everyone in the Black Kshetra sect screamed in horror. Clearly, they were terrified by Yi Xian's methods. If you want to harm me and my disciple, you should be prepared to die. Yi Xian mercilessly spoke. His 5 fingers were about to crush all of these ants to death on the spot. No! All of a sudden, a woman's cry could be heard. A girl in red staggered toward Yi Xian and his disciple. She was the Black Kshetra sect leader's daughter, Wan Hongling. Master, please wait, Yi Fengtian said hurriedly. Yi Fengtian hurriedly spoke, causing Yi Xian to frown. The world-suppressing strike didn't descend, and the terrifying giant palm in the sky slowly dissipated. Chapter 1703. Fengtian, please spare my father's life. Plop. Wan Hongling's face was pale. She knelt down in front of Yi Fengtian and kept kowtowing. Tears kept falling from her eyes. Get up. Yi Fengtian quickly helped the girl up. He couldn't bear to see her like this. Master, Yi Fengtian looked at Yi Xian with a red face. There was a hint of desperation in his eyes. Obviously, he couldn't bear to kill Wan Hongling. Fengtian, they want to harm you and me. We should kill them all. Yi Xian said coldly. Master, she once risked her life to save me. Yi Fengtian couldn't bear it. It's the so-called love again. Yi Xian turned his head away and let out a long sigh. Fengtian, you have inherited all my skills. Do you know what path I am walking? Yi Xian said with his back facing Yi Fengtian. Six desires are heartless, heaven and earth are heartless. Yi Fengtian had inherited almost all of Yi Xian's skills. He naturally knew what path his master was walking. This made him tremble. The so-called love is nothing more than an illusion. The so-called beauty is nothing more than a pink skeleton. I abandoned love when I was young because I knew that the so-called love would only become a hindrance on my path of cultivation. Yi Xian sighed. Master. Plop. Yi Fengtian knelt down with a pale face. Wan Hongling also knelt down with Yi Fengtian in front of Yi Xian. Her face was full of tears. Master, I know you are a powerful person. My father was wrong to want to harm you. If you really want to kill him, as his daughter, I am willing to pay with my life for him. Wan Hongling kept kowtowing to Yi Xian and begged Yi Xian. What a filial and affectionate little girl. But you're begging the wrong person. I will never show mercy for a woman. Yi Xian slowly turned around, his face cold and emotionless, completely unmoved by the girl's pleas. Fengtian, I'll give you two choices. You can kill this woman and wipe out the entire Black Kshetra sect. The second option is that I respect your wishes and let them live today. It's up to you to decide. Yi Xian's gaze was deep as he looked at his only disciple. Master, I've disappointed you. I really can't do it. I really can't do it, Yi Fengtian said bitterly. Give Master an explanation, Yi Xian said in a low voice. Because my path is different from Master's. Suddenly, Yi Fengtian raised his head and looked at Yi Xian. His face was filled with determination. Master, you've taught me a lot of skills. I should have walked the same path as you, but I can't be emotionless. I want to walk the path that suits me best, so I really can't go against my will and kill Hongling. Yi Fengtian kowtowed. All right. Yi Xian wasn't disappointed or angry at Yi Fengtian's disobedience. Instead, the corners of his mouth curved into a slight smile. In fact, since Wan Hongling appeared, Yi Xian had given Yi Fengtian a test that would determine Yi Fengtian's future. If Yi Fengtian killed Wan Hongling, he would follow in Yi Xian's footsteps. He would only be walking on Yi Xian's path, not his own. If a person wanted to reach the peak, he must follow his own heart. If he couldn't follow his heart and walked on someone else's path, he would only end up as a mediocre person. For example, the three Shenxis in the battlefield of 100. They only cultivated the chaotic fate space-time. They didn't walk on their own path. In the end, they could only end up as mediocre and be killed by others. Yi Fengtian didn't choose to kill Wan Hongling. He had his own opinions and followed his own heart. In Yi Xian's eyes, Yi Fengtian was a talent with great potential. Back in the Eldritch world, Yi Xian also saw that this child was honest and honest. That was why he wanted to pass down his skills. Only those that were suitable for oneself were the best. Yi Xian walked on the path of abandoning love. Yi Fengtian was not him. He had his own path to walk. Yi Xian understood this very well. Fengtian, tell me, do you like this girl? Yi Xian asked calmly. Yi Xian's question made Yi Fengtian's face turn red, but he still nodded and said, although I don't want to admit it, I do like Hongling. Little girl, what about you? Yi Xian looked at the girl and asked. I like Big Brother Yi. Wan Hongling's face turned red, but she still nodded vigorously. At this time, she wouldn't be pretentious. Good. Yi Xian nodded and said, since you two are in love with each other, then I'll give you two a test. If you can pass this test, then I'll allow you two to be together and believe in that so-called love. Senior, no matter what the test is, we will pass it. Wan Hongling bit her lips and said with determination. Master Fengtian will do the same. Yi Fengtian said. Good. Yi Xian's eyes deepened. Reincarnation. Buzz. All of a sudden, Yi Xian's 10 great heavenly gates opened with a loud bang. Rays of reincarnation light descended, instantly submerging the two of them. The next moment, Yi Fengtian and Wan Hongling seemed to have lost their souls. The two were completely covered by the light of reincarnation. They were going through an extremely terrifying calamity. What was reincarnation? Since Yi Xian comprehended the profound of reincarnation, he had a lot of great skills. At this moment, the two were immersed in the light of reincarnation and were going through a different life. This life was made up by Yi Xian for the two. If they could pass the test, Yi Xian would really believe that there was true love in this world. Will you pass the test? Yi Xian stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the two, who seemed to have lost their souls. He murmured. No one knew that the two were in the reincarnation dream and were going through a process from life to death. Reincarnation dream, illusion empty flower. Although the life Yi Xian made up for the two was not real, in the reincarnation dream, it was the most realistic life. There was no difference. This life had happened to Yi Xian before. It was also the biggest question in Yi Xian's heart. Perhaps the two could give him an answer today. Back then, the Eldritch world, the 12 ancestors of sorcery turned into the real body of Pangu and went to the celestial court. In order to save him, the Empyrean fairy was trampled to death by the real body of Pangu. This matter had been buried in the depths of Yi Xian's memory. To be honest, Yi Xian did not have any feelings for the Empyrean fairy. Until the moment the Empyrean fairy died, Yi Xian felt pain in his heart. He once asked himself if this was the love the Empyrean fairy had for him. In order to save his life, she did not care about her own safety. In the end, she ended up with her soul scattered. Did she have no regrets? At this moment, Yi Xian made up a reincarnation dream for the two, and this reincarnation dream replayed the scene that he and the Empyrean fairy experienced in the Eldritch world. However, the protagonists were changed to Yi Fengtian and Wan Hongling. If the two really had an undying love, they could pass the test. If they could not pass the test, they would end up with their souls scattered and die. It was not that Yi Xian was cruel. It was that he had high hopes for Yi Fengtian. If the two of them only had a superficial love, and Yi Fengtian went against his will for a woman, this kind of disciple would die. Chapter 1704. What's wrong with them? The Black Kshetra Hierophant didn't dare to speak. Now that he saw his son and daughter's dazed expressions, he decided to test them. Shut up. Yi Xian said coldly. The Black Kshetra Hierophant shuddered. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and didn't dare to make a sound. Time passed little by little. Yi Xian watched the two people in the reincarnation dream with his Dharma eye of destruction. From the moment they met to the moment they faced death, Yi Xian's expression kept changing. He felt like he was seeing himself and the Empyrean fairy. Only at this moment did Yi Xian deeply understand that the mysterious maiden had silently accompanied him all those years ago, but he had never felt the slightest bit of reluctance towards her. Only when the mysterious maiden had died for him did he feel guilty. Boom! All of a sudden, the light of reincarnation dissipated. Yi Fengtian and Wan Hongling suddenly opened their eyes. However, they looked extremely confused. It was as if they hadn't woken up from the dream. Hongling. In the next moment, when Yi Fengtian saw Wan Hongling appear in front of him alive, tears streamed down his face. He was extremely emotional. Brother Yi, didn't I die? Wan Hongling asked in a daze. Reincarnation dream, empty dream. Although the two of them seemed to have woken up in a very short time, they had already experienced tens of thousands of years in the dream. So, there really is such a thing as undying love in this world. Empyrean fairy, in the end, I, Yi Xian, am the one who has let you down. Yi Xian muttered in a daze. A trace of self-mockery appeared at the corner of his mouth. Abandoning love mercilessly and killing fiercely. This was the path that Yi Xian had chosen. He didn't regret it. However, when he suddenly looked back, he realized that he had only been accompanied by the wind of eternity. The people and things he used to be familiar with had turned to dust with the passage of time. He was the only one who traveled through eternity. It was lonely at the top. Only eternal loneliness accompanied him. Yi Xian had unknowingly gotten used to this kind of loneliness. Yi Xian felt a bit self-deprecating. Was this his greatest sorrow? Master. When Yi Fengtian saw Yi Xian, he suddenly woke up from his stupor. Only then did he remember what Yi Xian had said to the two of them. He also knew that he and Wan Hongling had just had an eternal dream. Senior. Wan Hongling also regained her senses. However, she looked at Yi Xian with extreme fear in her eyes. The dream just now was too real, and she felt that Yi Xian's ability was too terrifying. Yi Xian's thoughts turned as he calmly looked at the two of them. The corners of his mouth slowly curved into a kind smile. You've passed Master's test. In 10,000 years, Master will hold a grand wedding for you, Yi Xian said gently. Wedding? Yi Fengtian and Wan Hongling were stunned for a moment before their faces flushed red. They never thought that Yi Xian would actually want them to get married. Before Yi Fengtian could say anything, Yi Xian said indifferently, since ancient times, the parents' orders are the words of the matchmaker. You have to listen to me on this matter. After Yi Xian said that, he looked at the Black Kshetra Hierophant and said, I want to marry you. What do you think? Just one look from Yi Xian made the Black Kshetra Hierophant break out in cold sweat. He did not dare to say no. He was afraid that Yi Xian would kill him out of anger. Yes, yes. The Black Kshetra Hierophant nodded repeatedly. He even wiped the sweat off his forehead. Being able to keep his life was better than anything else. Okay. Yi Xian slowly nodded. He used the universal shift technique and directly tore open a cross-domain passageway. With a wave of his sleeve, Yi Fengtian and the others were directly sucked into his sleeve and disappeared into the void. In the celestial court of the north of the Grand Central Region. Master. Master. Inside the celestial emperor palace, Yi Xian sat on the throne. A large number of people from the celestial court stood on either side of him. Gu Beichen, Fatso Huang, and the others bowed. Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang were in high spirits. Since the battle between Yi Xian and the Undying Heaven Lord, although it had only ended in a draw, this matter quickly spread throughout the entire chaotic world, causing Yi Xian's reputation to reach an extremely terrifying level, faintly comparable to the strongest of all time. Yi Xian's return boosted the morale of the celestial court of the north of the celestial court. Everyone was in high spirits. They wanted to dominate the entire Grand Central region under the leadership of Yi Xian. Everyone was ambitious. Yi Xian was like that, and so were his subordinates. If they could become the overlord of the Grand Central region, the benefits would be unimaginable. At this moment, Yi Fengtian and Wan Hongling stood nervously beside Yi Xian. Obviously, the grand occasion of the celestial court of the north of the celestial court made them a little nervous. After all, the cultivators standing in front of them were all powerful. At this moment, they were worshipping Yi Xian with fanatical devotion. Today, I have two things to announce. Yi Xian's voice echoed in the imperial palace. This also made the slightly noisy voices disappear. Everyone's eyes fell on Yi Xian. First, Yi Fengtian and Wan Hongling will be husband and wife 10,000 years later. Second, the celestial court of the north of the celestial court will be renamed the Zongtian Palace. From now on, there will be no more celestial court of the north of the celestial court. The Zongtian Palace will also truly stand in the Grand Central region. As Yi Xian finished speaking, the crowd was silent for a moment. Then they erupted into loud cheers. Obviously, Yi Xian's decision was what everyone wanted. They had endured here for so many years. Finally, they could walk openly in the Grand Central region. Sir, since you created the Zongtian Palace, you should naturally have a title. Fatso Huang rolled his eyes and said, That's right. I think the title of Celestial Emperor suits you best, Gu Baichen hurriedly added. How about Yi Tiandi? Fatso Huang suggested with a smile. After all, when Yi Xian was the master of the celestial court in the Three Realms, he used the title of Yi Tiandi. I don't think it's appropriate. Sir, you used the title of Yi Tiandi before. Also, this is not the Eldritch world. I think it's better to change the title, Gu Baichen retorted. Zongtian Palace? Jun Wushuang muttered to herself. Then her eyes lit up. She was a very talented woman. According to the name of the orthodoxy established by Yi Xian, she could vaguely guess what Yi Xian wanted. Master, why don't you call yourself the master of the Zongtian Emperor? Jun Wushuang probed. Master of the Zongtian Emperor? As Jun Wushuang's words fell, the crowd murmured. Then their eyes lit up. They felt that the title was indeed suitable for Yi Xian. Zongtian Emperor? Emperor? Yi Xian's eyes were deep. Then he slowly nodded. The Zongtian formula that he created was indeed suitable for the title. Greetings, Emperor. Fatso Huang could best guess Yi Xian's intentions. When he saw Yi Xian nod, he knew that Yi Xian was very satisfied with the title. He quickly bowed to Yi Xian. As Fatso Huang bowed first, the others hurriedly followed suit. Yi Xian's title was thus decided. In fact, Yi Xian did not care about these titles. His thoughts were all on his own cultivation. After all, only when he was strong could he be eternal. Chapter 1705. However, it was necessary to have a title because every strongest of all time had their own title. Although Yi Xian was not the strongest, he was not much different from them. Moreover, the Jintian Palace that he established was going to dominate the chaotic world. If he did not even have a title, he would be criticized by all the creatures in the chaotic world. Just like the Extreme Love Master Yi Qingmei, the world only knew her as the Extreme Love Master. But almost no one knew her real name. Not only the Extreme Love Master but also the other strongest. Therefore, Yi Xian had to accept the title of Jintian Emperor. The next thing was about the construction and location of the Jintian Palace. At this moment, Yi Xian was located in the extreme north of the Grand Central Territory. The spiritual qi there was thin, and the place was bitterly cold. It was not a good place to set up a sect. However, the Grand Central Territory's blessed enclave was occupied by various great sects and orthodoxies. The strongest orthodoxies even occupied the best spiritual qi sources. If the Jintian Palace wanted to set up an excellent place, there was no suitable place in the entire Grand Central Territory. However, this problem was not a problem for Fatso Huang and the others. With Yi Xian as the emperor, they were comparable to the strongest of all time. Moreover, Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang were two heaven-defying geniuses at the complete immortal realm. The Jintian Palace's foundation was terrifying. If there was no suitable place to set up a sect, they would have to snatch it. Soon, Fatso Huang drew a blueprint and selected 5 great sections. He then drew an X for each of the 5 great sections. Fatty Huang then raised his head and looked at Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang with a sinister smile. Taichu Wushuang, these 5 great sects occupy the north, south, east, west, and central respectively. The 5 of them are the best. The 2 of you go and subdue them. If they don't obey, kill all of them. No problem. Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang looked at each other and smiled. These 5 great sects had veteran sect masters, but the 2 of them did not care at all. I'll leave it to you to set up the Jintian Palace. Yi Xian did not care about the trivial matters of setting up orthodoxies. He gave full authority to Fatso Huang and Gu Baichen. It had to be said. Although Fatso Huang and Gu Baichen had ordinary cultivation bases at the early immortal realm, Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang were humble. They let the other 2 do whatever they wanted, because Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang knew very well that Fatso Huang and Gu Baichen were Yi Xian's trusted aides, and their words represented Yi Xian's will. The entire world was in an uproar, all sects in chaos. A massacre swept through the 5 great sections. Under the leadership of Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang, the 5 great sects were either destroyed or surrendered. The 2 of them had completed their mission very well. At the same time, a shocking piece of news spread. The Burying Heaven Palace was established, and the title of Burying Heaven Emperor was spread out. This shocked all the beings in the primal chaos. The most shocking thing was that Yi Xian used the name of Celestial Emperor, and the people of his orthodoxy called him Imperial Lord. This was simply a provocation to the strongest. Zhang Tiandi, the Emperor. What is the Lord? Lord, not just anyone could use this word. Only those who had become the strongest of all time could name themselves after the Lord. Just like the Master of Chaos and Master of Fate, the establishment of the Burying Heaven Palace immediately made many great orthodoxies unhappy. Moreover, the Burying Heaven Palace was unscrupulous in their actions. They exterminated sects without any hesitation. Their methods were cruel and ruthless, making them the target of public criticism. As the saying goes, if the lips die, the teeth will feel cold. The 5 great sects were exterminated, and the great orthodoxies were all in danger. They were afraid that they would be the next. This made some of the great sects leaders personally complain to the 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace, begging the palace to help them. Don't forget, the ruler of the 10th Eon was the Lord of all spirits. The 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace was also the overlord of the 10th Eon. All living beings had to submit to the 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace. Just when everyone thought that the 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace would stand up for these great sects, what happened next made everyone speechless. The leaders who went to the 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace to complain were all refused entry. The Lord of all spirits even personally issued a decree, sending an envoy to the Burying Heaven Palace to deliver a congratulatory gift, congratulating the Burying Heaven Palace on becoming a great sect. The 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace's attitude made everyone realize how terrifying the Burying Heaven Palace was. Even the 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace didn't want to offend them. Moreover, because of this incident, some people finally believed that the Lord of Burying Heaven Palace really did fight the Lord of Immortality. Moreover, it ended in a draw. Otherwise, the Lord of all spirits wouldn't be so friendly. In a short time, the Lord of Burying Heaven's name resounded throughout the 5 regions of chaos. Countless wandering cultivators rushed to the Burying Heaven Palace, hoping to become one of its members. As the saying went, one can enjoy the shade of a great tree. The fact that Yi Xian could fight the Lord of Immortality proved that the Burying Heaven Palace wasn't any weaker than a great orthodoxy. This made many people see a great opportunity. Boundless heaven and earth, kingdom of myriad laws. Divine islands rose from the ground. Clouds floated in the sky. Countless palaces and pavilions shone with divine light. The 99 heavenly palaces were ancient and majestic. The Burying Heaven Palace. This was the supreme orthodoxy created by Yi Xian. It was divided into 99 heavenly layers, each of which was incomparably vast. To a large extent, the Burying Heaven Palace was similar to the celestial court of the past. However, it was millions of times larger than the celestial court. Just the 99 heavenly layers alone occupied billions of miles of the sky. It was definitely comparable to a great orthodoxy, or even better. The 99 heavenly layers. The Imperial Palace. The stars in the sky rotated, and the vast sea of stars surged. Yi Xian sat in the middle of the Imperial Palace. Above his head was the boundless primordial universe. Breathe in, breathe in, breathe in. Yi Xian breathed in and out divine light. The 10 gates rotated behind him. Rays of Burying Heaven reincarnation circulated around his body. It was a frightening sight. Master. Senior. Light footsteps were heard. A beautiful couple entered the Imperial Palace. It was Yi Fengtian and Wan Hongling. Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes. The light around him dissipated. He calmly looked at the two of them and called them to his side. Hongling, since you're about to marry Fengtian, you don't have to call me senior anymore. You can call me master like him, said Yi Xian. Really? Wan Hongling's face was full of joy. She couldn't believe her ears. Because during these days in the Burying Heaven Palace, she finally understood how terrifying Yi Xian was. He fought against the strongest, interacted with forbidden characters, and strengthened himself time and time again. Even when faced with the strongest killing intent, he survived time and time again. In the end, he could become someone comparable to the strongest throughout history. If she could really become Yi Xian's disciple, This was an unimaginable opportunity. How could this little girl not be excited? Hongling, hurry up and greet Master, Yi Fengtian hurriedly urged. Master, Hongling will kowtow to you. Wan Hongling's soul was blessed. She quickly knelt down and kowtowed to Yi Xian. Looking at Wan Hongling, Yi Xian's eyes were deep and calm. This made Wan Hongling and Yi Fengtian a little nervous. They didn't know what their master was thinking. Fengtian inherited my techniques, and he has his own path to walk. Since you call me teacher, I will teach you a set of techniques. Consider this my wedding gift to the two of you. Buzz. After saying this, Yi Xian turned his hand, and a scripture appeared. There were even strands of red threads circling around the scripture. This scripture is called the Boundless Secular Technique. It was created by the former master of human Tao. Unfortunately, she has already passed away. If you can cultivate this technique diligently, perhaps there will be a great opportunity waiting for you in the future. Yi Xian casually handed the scripture to Wan Hongling. This made the little girl happily accept it. She kept kowtowing to Yi Xian to thank him. Of course, she had heard of the name of the human Tao master. Wan Hongling knew that there were only 2 female supreme masters among the top 10, and the human Tao master was one of them. Her Dharma access was naturally a supreme Dharma access. This was an unimaginable opportunity. Looking at the overjoyed Wan Hongling, Yi Xian's eyes were deep and leisurely. He wondered if this little girl could inherit the position of Master of Human Tao in the future. Back then, when the Master of Human Tao was about to pass away, she gave the complete boundless secular technique to Yi Xian, hoping that he could find a successor for her. Unfortunately, although Luo Yao was the Master of Human Tao's disciple, her personality was too difficult to complement. She could not inherit the Master of Human Tao's legacy. At this moment, Yi Xian gave the boundless secular technique to Wan Hongling. He wondered if this little girl was fated to inherit the position of Master of Human Tao. This would depend on her own fortune. In 10,000 years, you two will get married. That day will also be the founding ceremony of Jintian Palace. This is a double blessing. I will invite many guests to attend the ceremony. In the 10,000 years, you two can prepare. You may leave, Yi Xian said. Yes, master. The two bowed to Yi Xian, then slowly left the palace. However, just as Yi Xian was about to leave the palace, he seemed to have remembered something and turned back. Chapter 1706. Seeing that Yi Fengtian had returned, Yi Xian was slightly startled. Is there anything else? Yi Fengtian bowed to Yi Xian and said, Master, your disciple obtained a strange item by chance. Not only is it impervious to fire and water, it is also indestructible. Your disciple has studied it for a long time, but still could not understand it. Master is very knowledgeable. Do you recognize this item? As Yi Fengtian spoke, he flipped his hand, and a small ancient cauldron appeared. He directly presented it to Yi Xian. Originally, Yi Xian did not pay too much attention to the strange item that Yi Fengtian mentioned. After all, at his level, it was very difficult for external objects to move him. However, when Yi Xian's gaze fell on the small cauldron, Yi Xian's originally calm expression suddenly became sluggish. In the next moment, an extremely terrifying divine light bloomed from his body. Boom boom boom, burying the sky reincarnation cycle. One after another, the entire imperial palace trembled violently, as if it would collapse at any moment. This made Yi Fengtian even more frightened. He did not know why his master's emotions were fluctuating so much. Small cauldron. Buzz. Yi Xian stretched out his 5 fingers, and the small cauldron instantly fell into his hand. His eyes shone brightly as a pair of law eyes of destruction continuously examined the item in his hand. Unbelievable. He also did not dare to believe. If the small cauldron was not in Yi Xian's hand right now, he would really think that he was in a dream. Otherwise, how could he obtain a small cauldron so easily? Yi Xian had been looking for the heaven-shattering cauldron all this time. He even secretly wanted to obtain the small cauldron in the hands of the 3 strongest cultivators. However, Yi Xian did not expect that just as he temporarily put the matter of the small cauldron aside, his personal disciple would send him such a huge gift. Yi Xian carefully observed and finally confirmed that the small cauldron in his hand was indeed the real deal. Although the patterns on the cauldron were slightly different from other small cauldrons, there was no doubt that it was the real deal. How did you obtain this item? Yi Xian tried his best to stabilize his emotions. He looked at Yi Fengtian with a solemn expression. Looking at the serious expression on his master's face, Yi Fengtian knew that this small cauldron must have a great origin. He hurriedly reported, "Back then, when I was cultivating beside a large river, this cauldron appeared with a wave. I happened to pick it up." "You picked it up?" Yi Xian was completely shocked. If it wasn't for the fact that he could feel that his disciple wasn't lying, Yi Xian wouldn't believe such a thing even if he was beaten to death. What kind of joke was this? The heavenly void-shattering cauldron was a treasure that even the strongest of the 10,000 years had cherished. Yet it had been picked up so easily by someone else. Wasn't this the biggest joke in the world? Master, disciple does not dare to have any doubts. This item was indeed picked up by disciple. Yi Xian bowed to Yi Xian. I believe in you. Yi Xian eased his shocked state of mind as he comforted his disciple. Fengtian, this item is called the Heavenly Void-Shattering Cauldron. It is a chaos treasure. The fact that you were able to pick it up proves that you are a person of great fortune. However, this cauldron is of great use to me. Are you willing to give it to me? Yi Xian said in a low voice. Without master, there would be no disciple. Master, please take it, Yi Fengtian said seriously. All right. Yi Xian nodded slowly and said, then I won't be polite. Originally, Yi Xian wouldn't take something that belonged to his disciple. However, the heavenly void-shattering cauldron was different. He wanted to find the forbidden heavenly law inside and use it to save Lu Bai. Master, disciple will take his leave first. If you have any orders, please tell disciple directly. Yi Xian bowed and left the imperial palace again. Clearly, he could tell that Yi Xian's thoughts were all on the small cauldron at the moment. However, Yi Fengtian was also extremely surprised. He didn't expect that the small cauldron he picked up was actually a chaos treasure. Yi Fengtian was amazed by his luck. As Yi Xian and Fengtian left the imperial palace, Yi Xian looked at the small cauldron in his hand. A deep look flashed through his eyes. Could this child be the child of destiny? Yi Xian murmured. The so-called child of destiny was a general term. It could be said that it was a person with great fortune. This kind of person could turn a disaster into a blessing and had countless opportunities. Although the so-called child of destiny was only a legend, Yi Xian had never believed in such illusory things. However, Yi Fengtian had picked up the heaven-shattering cauldron. This caused Yi Xian to have some doubts about the illusory concept of destiny. Perhaps there really was a so-called child of destiny in the primal chaos universe, who was favored by the heavens. Phew! Yi Xian exhaled slowly. He temporarily suppressed the matter of Yi Fengtian, picking up the small cauldron in his heart. Then, he carefully observed the small cauldron in his hand. As the saying went, one can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find it by chance. Yi Xian finally understood the meaning of this sentence. The heavenly void-shattering cauldron that he had painstakingly searched for had actually fallen into his hand of its own accord. Rumble! Yi Xian rolled up his sleeves, and the doors of the imperial palace closed with a rumble. Peerless seals sealed the entire imperial palace. Even the strongest of all time couldn't pry into the palace. Buzz! The void rippled and rippled. The ancient bronze scripture appeared. The pages of the scripture flipped in the void. Each page was engraved with the image of a small cauldron. There were a total of 6 pages, which represented 6 heavenly void-shattering cauldrons. In addition to the small cauldron in Yi Xian's hand, Yi Xian had a total of 7 small cauldrons. Apart from the 3 small cauldrons in the hands of the 3 strongest, there were only 2 small cauldrons left in the outside world. Go! Yi Xian's face was filled with excitement. His arms were trembling slightly, but he still steadied his mind and sent the 7th small cauldron toward the ancient bronze scripture. He hoped that the 7th small cauldron could be imprinted in the ancient bronze scripture. Boom! All of a sudden, an extremely strong repulsive force bloomed from the 2 divine objects. With a clang, the 7th small cauldron fell to the ground. It couldn't be integrated into the ancient bronze scripture. This again. Yi Xian frowned. The same thing happened to the small cauldron he obtained previously. It couldn't be imprinted in the ancient bronze scripture. Although Yi Xian was mentally prepared, he couldn't hide his disappointment that the seventh small cauldron couldn't be imprinted in the ancient bronze scripture. It seems like the seventh small cauldron also needs an opportunity to be truly imprinted in the ancient bronze scripture. Yi Xian murmured. Yi Xian held the small cauldron in his hand again. He then calmly comprehended the mysteries of the cauldron. The ancient bronze scripture hovered above his head, hoping to comprehend some of its mysteries. Time was like water, passing in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, 5,000 years had passed. Yi Xian had also comprehended the small cauldron for 5,000 years, but he had gained nothing. He couldn't comprehend it, couldn't integrate it, and even used the reincarnation ultimacy. However, nothing happened to the seventh small cauldron, or the ancient bronze scripture. Where is the opportunity? Yi Xian's face was gloomy. His eyes were filled with urgency. He had tried everything but nothing worked. Damn it! Yi Xian murmured hatefully. He had a love-hate relationship with the heaven-shattering cauldron. Every time he obtained a small cauldron, in order to imprint it in the ancient bronze scripture, he had suffered a lot. Chapter 1707. However, the benefits were also obvious. Every time, he would gain great benefits from the small cauldron. This feeling was incomprehensible to outsiders. Only Yi Xian was happy and in pain. Emperor, just as Yi Xian continued to comprehend the small cauldron, Li Taichu's voice came from outside the imperial palace. This also woke Yi Xian up temporarily. What's the matter? Yi Xian asked in a deep voice. Emperor, there are still 5,000 years until Yi Fengtian and Wan Hongling's wedding day. It's also the founding ceremony of the burial sky palace. I wonder who you want to invite to attend the ceremony. Li Taichu asked that why Yi Xian casually threw out a jade scroll, and it directly appeared in Li Taichu's hand. This jade scroll contains the invitation list. You and Jun Wushuang go and send the invitations according to the people on the list, Yi Xian said. After receiving Yi Xian's instructions, Li Taichu hurriedly looked at the people on the jade scroll. However, it didn't matter if he didn't look at it. After looking at it, he was instantly shocked. This was because the people Yi Xian had invited actually included the 8 supreme experts, and even the space beasts were included. In addition to these people, there were also the leaders of various major sections. This lineup was simply rare. Emperor, this? Before Li Taichu could speak, Yi Xian interrupted in a deep voice. Do as I say. As for whether they come or not, it's their own business. Yes, Emperor. Li Taichu hurriedly left because no one could go against Yi Xian's will. Inside the imperial palace, Yi Xian frowned. He kept playing with the small cauldron in his hand and murmured, What is the opportunity to open the 7th small cauldron? Yi Xian was too anxious. If he could open the 7th small cauldron now, regardless of whether there was the forbidden heaven technique he wanted, it would only be beneficial to Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian had only opened the 10 great heavenly gates. Although he was not afraid of the threat of the strongest, he could not do anything to the strongest of all. Yi Xian was naturally indignant. He had to kill that undying old thief no matter what. As for those utmost powerful beings who had targeted him before, he would not let them off either. In order to defeat or even kill the strongest of all eternity, other than opening the 11th gate of heaven, only the item contained within the heaven-shattering cauldron could do so. Yi Xian's heart was anxious. However, the more anxious he was, the more he could not figure out what the opportunity for the 7th small cauldron was. Feng Tian had such a great opportunity to obtain the small cauldron, and even gave me such a great gift. Yet he's sitting on a mountain of treasures but can't get it. How detestable, Yi Xian muttered dejectedly. Yes, all of a sudden. As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind, as if he had vaguely grasped something at this moment. Sealing the heavens? Opportunity? Yes, that's it. Yi Xian's eyes shone brightly. He had finally grasped this glimmer of inspiration. A look of excitement appeared in his eyes once again. since the seventh small cauldron was coincidentally picked up by Yi Fengtian. This also proved that this disciple of his was someone with great luck. Perhaps he was the so-called child of destiny. Perhaps the opportunity to open the seventh small cauldron lay with this disciple of his. If Yi Fengtian could have such great luck to pick up the small cauldron, then wouldn't he have the opportunity to open the seventh small cauldron as well? Opportunities and luck were the most illusory things. Yi Xian was also skeptical about this. However, since Yi Fengtian could obtain the small cauldron, this also proved that this method might work. Fengtian, come to the imperial palace. Yi Xian transmitted his voice across the air. Soon, Yi Fengtian entered the imperial palace, and once again appeared in front of Yi Xian. However, he did not understand why Yi Xian called him here. Fengtian, I have studied this cauldron for many years, but have not gained anything. Since you found this cauldron by chance, perhaps the secret to opening the cauldron lies with you. Yi Xian did not mince his words. Me? Yi Fengtian was slightly startled. Then, he looked at Yi Xian in confusion and asked, Master, what do you need me to do? Come sit in front of me. Under Yi Xian's instruction, Yi Fengtian sat cross-legged in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian placed the small cauldron back in his hand and said, Calm your mind and qi. Meditate and comprehend. Use your own cultivation to harmonize with the small cauldron. Under Yi Xian's instruction, Yi Fengtian did not dare to delay. He hurriedly calmed his mind, and slowly sensed the small cauldron in his hand. Time passed by little by little. 100 years passed in the blink of an eye. Yi Fengtian had spent 100 years studying the small cauldron. This kind of boring meditation made Yi Fengtian anxious. However, every time he wanted to speak, Yi Xian's words would ring in his ears. He could only continue to meditate and comprehend the small cauldron. Finally, when 200 years passed, a green light quietly appeared around Yi Fengtian's body. Although this green light was extremely weak and could not be seen with the naked eye, it did appear. Buzz! It was also the appearance of this green light that caused the seventh small cauldron to react. The body of the cauldron was buzzing slightly. The ancient patterns on the cauldron were shining brightly. Great! This scene made Yi Xian's face light up with joy. He knew that he had guessed correctly. The key to opening the seventh small cauldron was indeed in his disciple's body. Boom! Suddenly, before Yi Xian could finish his joy, Yi Fengtian's face suddenly turned pale. A large amount of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. The green light that appeared just a moment ago suddenly disappeared. Clang! At the same time, the small cauldron also fell to the ground, making an ear-piercing sound. How could this be? Yi Xian's face instantly darkened. Just now, he had felt the small cauldron's reaction. However, in the end he had failed. Master, I'm sorry, Yi Fengtian said weakly. He knew that he had failed. This made him feel guilty. Don't speak. Let me see what happened to you. Yi Xian quickly calmed himself down. He pointed a finger at Yi Fengtian's forehead and began to observe why Yi Fengtian had failed. In the next moment, Yi Xian's eyes moved. He discovered that inside his disciple's body, there was a faint green light. This was the mysterious energy that had appeared just now. It was also this mysterious energy that caused the seventh small cauldron to react. This is... Yi Xian's expression was astonished. Although this mysterious green energy was only a trace weak, it faintly emitted an extremely terrifying life force. Clearly, this was the law and Tao that Yi Fengtian had comprehended. It was a power that belonged to him. Although it was only a trace, it really existed in his body. If it continued to grow, it could become a new kind of supreme power. I see. Yi Xian moved his finger away from Yi Fengtian's forehead. There was already a look of understanding in his eyes. If Yi Xian's guess was correct, this mysterious energy in Yi Fengtian's body was the key to opening the small cauldron. However, this energy was too weak. It couldn't open the seventh small cauldron at all. That was why it had failed. Could it be that my disciple is the master of the 11th Yuan assembly? A shocking thought flashed through Yi Xian's mind. It made him even more daring. Almost every supreme powerhouse of the ages had a relationship with the heaven-shattering cauldron. The three supreme powerhouses were like this. And so was the undying Heaven Lord. Yi Fengtian had picked up the small cauldron by chance. This was a bit of a fantasy. If he was the supreme powerhouse of the 11th Yuan Assembly, perhaps all these things would make sense. After all, he was the destined one. He was secretly supported by the will of primal chaos. Of course, this was all Yi Xian's guess. He didn't dare to say whether it was true or not. However, Yi Xian knew one thing. The key to opening the 7th small cauldron was in his disciple's body. Chapter 1708. Yi Xian already had a rough idea that Yi Fengtian was the key to opening the 7th cauldron. However, the mysterious power in Yi Fengtian's body was too weak. Only by strengthening this power could the 7th cauldron be opened. Thinking of this, Yi Xian already knew what to do. Looking at Yi Xian in deep thought, Yi Fengtian could not help but ask nervously, "Master, what's wrong?" "It's fine. Go back and prepare for your marriage with Hong Ling. After you're married, follow me and cultivate properly," Yi Xian said. Okay. Hearing that Yi Xian wanted to bring him along, Yi Fengtian was overjoyed and left. It seems that opening the cauldron will take some time. Looking at Yi Fengtian's departing figure, Yi Xian let out a long sigh. Fortunately, at least he had found a way to open the cauldron. This was much better than wasting time without any clues. On the other side, the world was watching and talking about it. Yi Xian, the emperor of Zhongtian, sent out invitations to various sects and orthodoxies to attend the ceremony. He would even personally host his disciples' wedding. Moreover, it wasn't just the various great sects that were invited. All the omnipotent almighties with a name had received an invitation from the sky-burying palace. Not only that, but Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang also personally visited the 8 supreme orthodoxies and sent Yi Xian's invitations to them. Soon the news spread throughout the entire chaotic world. Everyone was guessing Yi Xian's intentions. Some of the sect leaders and almighties even wondered if they should accept Yi Xian's invitation. Everyone knew that Yi Xian was not on good terms with the almighties, especially with the undying Heaven Lord. They were afraid that accepting Yi Xian's invitation would indirectly offend some of the almighties. However, it was fine. After all, Yi Xian's reputation was at its peak. No sect or almighties dared to disrespect Yi Xian. Although some people were reluctant, they still replied to Zhongtian Palace, saying that they would come as promised. Undying Heaven Palace. Yi Xian, you dog-like ant. Do you want to be on equal footing with the strongest? Boom! The undying Heaven Lord's divine light erupted, directly turning the invitation in his hand into ashes. His expression was cold and ashen, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Emperor Zhongtian? You sure talk big. You sure are ambitious. The undying Heaven Lord spoke in a low voice. Terrifying silhouettes of nirvanic energy revolved around him. Clearly, he hated Yi Xian to the extreme. Heavenly Master, do you really want to go? The great elder cautiously probed. Yes, why wouldn't I? The undying Heaven Lord sneered. Since Yi Xian dares to invite this lord will naturally go. Heaven-devouring Devil Palace. Men, prepare a generous gift. I will personally head to the Sky Burial Palace. The heaven-devouring demon master laughed coldly. Yes, Devil Master. An elder hurriedly went to prepare a congratulatory gift. Devil Master, Yi Xian has already become powerful. Do you want to befriend him? An elder asked. Befriend him? He's not worthy. The heaven-devouring demon master sneered. Yi Xian only fought with the undying Heaven Lord. He's too arrogant. He actually named himself after the Emperor Lord. Now that he's established the so-called Sky Burial Palace, it seems that he wants to be on equal footing with the strongest like us. Since he invited this lord, then this lord will naturally go. It's not about befriending him, but Yi Xian has the complete tribulation transcender technique in his hands. That's my real goal. There are no so-called enemies or friends in this world. It's all about benefits. If Yi Xian is smart, he should know what to do. Otherwise, the founding ceremony of his Sky Burial Palace won't be so easy. Destiny Palace. Rumble. A wheel of destiny rotated in the void. The Master of Destiny stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes stared at the wheel of destiny ruthlessly, and a deep color rose in his eyes. You've already touched the bottom line of destiny. How can this lord let an alien like you continue to live? The master of destiny whispered ruthlessly. But this person is so powerful. How can I really kill him? The master of destiny frowned. He had always wanted to kill Yi Xian, and he had even helped the undying heaven lord kill Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian had survived time and time again. If he wasn't confident, he wouldn't make a move again. Do I have to open the river of destiny? The master of destiny frowned and muttered. As the master of destiny, he could activate the river of destiny and mobilize its power for his own use. His biggest killing move was the river of destiny. To put it bluntly, Yi Xian hadn't become an ultimate expert yet. Even if it was another ultimate expert, if he used the full strength of the river of destiny, it wouldn't be a problem to kill them. The three great rivers ran through the ages. The power contained within was unimaginable. This was also the greatest trump card of the three great ultimate experts. This was also the reason why they were called the ultimate experts. However, unless it was absolutely necessary, the master of destiny didn't want to use the river of destiny. This was because he himself had a kind of reverence for the river of destiny. If he made a mistake, it was very likely that it would backfire on him. Therefore, without absolute confidence, the master of destiny didn't consider using the river of destiny to kill Yi Xian. Moreover, the three great ultimate experts weren't united. The master of spacetime was obviously biased towards Yi Xian, while the master of primal chaos was very neutral. Even if he wanted to kill Yi Xian, the master of primal chaos might not be willing to do so. Yi Xian, you're just an alien in the end. Let's see how long you can be arrogant for. The master of destiny muttered. 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace. Heavenly Master. As the saying goes, a mountain can't have two tigers, and a country can't have two rulers. Yi Xian established Buried Heaven Palace and ran amok. He established a Tao orthodoxy and destroyed 5 great sections. This is simply challenging the authority of our 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace. An elder frowned and said to the Master of all spirits, Heavenly Master, please understand. Our 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace is in charge of the 10th epoch, and you are the master of the 10th epoch. How can we let him continue to act so recklessly? Another elder said. The master of all spirits stood with his hands behind his back. He looked up at the vast starry sky, his eyes slightly drifting. No one knew what he was thinking. Finally, the master of all spirits retracted his gaze and looked at the two elders. As long as the people of Buried Heaven Palace know their place, our 10,000 Spirit Heavenly Palace doesn't need to care. As for Yi Xian, there will be a battle between us. After saying this, a deep look flashed through the master of all spirits' eyes. Back then, before he achieved his Tao, he had been defeated by his future self. This was his only defeat, and it was also an eternal humiliation in his heart. He had an agreement with Yi Xian. It was also because of this agreement that he rarely made things difficult for Yi Xian. He had always been waiting for him to grow. Although Yi Xian wasn't the strongest at the moment, the master of all spirits felt that the time was ripe. 5,000 years later, Buried Heaven Palace. Auspicious luck and splendor filled the sky. Rays of golden light spread out in the sky, connecting the 99 heavenly palaces. From time to time, large numbers of figures could be seen rushing towards Buried Heaven Palace from all directions. Chapter 1709. Today was the founding ceremony of the Zongtian Palace, as well as the wedding day of Yi Fengtian and Wan Hongling. Everyone who received the invitation from the Zongtian Palace, including the Tongtian mighty figures, came to the Zongtian Palace today. The 99 levels of heaven, the sun, moon, and stars were above, and the white clouds were below. The clouds were spread out, and the Tongtian Palace was on the ground. White jade tables were spread out in the clouds. Each table had spirit fruits and wine on it. Beautiful female cultivators were dancing gracefully in the clouds, giving off a feeling of peerless beauty. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Yi Xian. He sat on the dome with his legs crossed, and 3,000 black strands of hair fell behind his head. When he opened and closed his eyes, It was as if the stars in the sky were rotating in his eyes, giving people a sense of mystery and majesty. Sect Master Butian is here. Sect Master Sunluo is here. Sect Master Tianluo is here. Sect Master Jukil is here. As the voice of the welcoming divine priest echoed in the sky, people with terrifying auras came to the Taoist hall. They were the sect masters of various sects, and there were dozens of them. Any one of these people would be respected as an ancestor in the chaotic world. They were respected by all living beings and had supreme power. However, as these people came to the Yunxiao banquet, everyone was extremely humble. They even cupped their hands and bowed to Yi Xian, lowering their posture. Congratulations to Yi Daoyu for establishing a great sect, Sect Master Butian said with a smile. However, his smile was a little bitter. After all, Yi Xian was very weak in the past, and he still needed to look up to him. But now, their statuses were reversed, which made Sect Master Butian sigh in his heart. Please accept my humble gift, fellow Taoist. Sect Master Tianluo was an immortal realm mighty figure who opened the 8 gates of heaven. He handed the gift to the welcoming divine priest, and then cupped his hands and bowed to Yi Xian. Yi Daoyu has established a supreme sect. This is a matter worthy of celebration. The Sunluo sect leader also congratulated Yi Xian. However, if one were to observe carefully, one would notice that these leaders only addressed Yi Xian as fellow Taoist, and did not mention the title of Monarch Lord at all. Obviously, they did not approve of Yi Xian's title as Monarch Lord of Zhongtian. Actually, these people couldn't be blamed. After all, only the strongest of all time had the right to call themselves Lord. These sect masters naturally did not dare to casually address Yi Xian as such. If the other utmost powerful beings were to find out about this, and were to be angered, they would not be able to withstand the wrath of an utmost powerful being. Humph! Suddenly a cold snort rang out. Fatso Huang walked over with a sneer on his face. He coldly glanced at these sect master-level figures and said in a strange tone, "Who do you think you are? How dare you call my master a fellow Taoist?" At this moment, Fatso Huang had fully demonstrated what it meant to be a dog that bullies under its master's power. Although he had just entered the immortal realm, he did not give these sect masters any face at all. Being reprimanded by a puny immortal realm expert instantly made the faces of many sect masters turn cold. Who were they? How could they be reprimanded by a puny cultivator? Just as some of them were about to reprimand him, their hearts skipped a beat as they recalled that they were in Zhongtian Palace. Yi Xian, who was on the dome, was not someone they could afford to offend. Endure. The sect master-level figures glanced coldly at Fatso Huang and forcefully suppressed the anger in their hearts. Why? Are you not convinced? Fatso Huang sneered. He did not care about these so-called sect masters at all. Since these people dared to address Yi Xian as fellow Taoist, they would really think that they were important if he did not give them some deterrence. Moreover, Fatso Huang understood one thing very well. With Yi Xian's current status, it was naturally impossible for him to reprimand these sect masters because of how they addressed him. As Yi Xian's lackey, he had to teach these people a lesson. Fellow Taoist, we are here to observe the ceremony without any provocation. Why are you mocking and ridiculing us? Is this how Zhongtian Palace treats its guests? Is Zhongtian Palace so unreasonable that they can bully us as they wish? There was a female sect master who had a dignified and beautiful appearance. She was in existence who had opened the 7 heavenly gates. She frowned and retorted sarcastically, "Tai Chu, kill her for me." Suddenly Fatso Huang smiled viciously. "Yes, master." Clang. 6 annihilations exterminating all life. A ray of sword light illuminated the 99 heavens. It was so dazzling that people could not open their eyes. When the ray of sword light dissipated, the female sect master who had just retorted was already beheaded. Drag her down and feed her to the dogs. Fatso Huang waved his hand. Li Taichu's expression was cold as he carried the female sect master's body and left. From beginning to end, there was not the slightest bit of emotion. Gasp! When this scene appeared in front of the sect masters, the sound of them sucking in cold breaths could be heard continuously. Especially the sect masters who were angry at Fatty Huang just now. At this moment, Their entire bodies trembled. A dignified female sect master, who had opened the 7 great heavenly gates, had died just like that without even the slightest sign. How could this not make them tremble in fear? Li Taichu's sword in particular made their souls leave their bodies, and made them experience the fear of death. Now who else wants to talk reason with me? Fatso Huang smiled viciously, and slowly walked to the front of these sect masters. His eyes were so eerie that these sect masters did not dare to look him in the eye. Talk reason? Treat guests well? No such thing. Fatso Huang understood Yi Xian's way of doing things very well. In Yi Xian's mind, whoever had the bigger fist was the reason. They were just some ants. What was the point of talking reason with them? Not convinced. Very simple, kill you with 1 slash. Not convinced. Kill your entire family. Not convinced. Not convinced. However, with Yi Xian's current status he could not participate. After all, others would say that he was bullying the weak, which was too shameful for his status. However, Fatso Huang did not have any scruples. Whoever was not convinced by Yi Xian could just die. He had also fully demonstrated what it meant to be a qualified lackey. If you are not convinced, kill until you are. My words are the reason. Fatso Huang carried out Yi Xian's thoughts to the end. This also made Yi Xian, who was sitting cross-legged on the dome, smile. He naturally knew what Fatso Huang was doing. You are a guest. How can you commit murder? If there is a next time, there will be no mercy. Yi Xian finally opened his mouth and pretended to reprimand him. I know my mistake. Fatso Huang smiled knowingly, and then retreated from the side of the sect masters. Shameless. Extremely shameless. The sect masters cursed in their hearts in fear. However, the master and servant echoed each other, which made the sect masters shudder. They finally realized that Yi Xian and the others were not kind people. There was no reason to reason with them at all. At this moment, the sect masters all kept their mouths shut, afraid that they would be killed if they said something wrong. Congratulations to the emperor for establishing a supreme orthodoxy. Just as the Yunxiao banquet was as silent as cicadas in winter, a powerful aura came from the horizon. The Extreme Love Master was strolling over. Extreme Love, take the seat of honor. Yi Xian smiled slightly. He rolled up his sleeves, and a golden cloud rose. The Extreme Love Master instantly arrived and sat beside Yi Xian. Greetings, Extreme Love Master. The sect masters hurriedly bowed. After all, the most powerful person in history was here, so they could not be rude. Humph. Emperor. Yi Xian, you are so arrogant. Rumble. The undying Heaven Lord arrived in an instant. His lips curled up in a disdainful smile. His killing intent permeated the air as the undying Heaven Lord arrived. Chapter 17:10. Why? Do you have any doubts? Rumble. The sky darkened, and there was no light. The 10 heavenly gates rose behind Yi Xian, and began to revolve. He slowly stood up and looked at the undying Heaven Lord. That terrifying reincarnation halo was exploding in the sky, unparalleled throughout the ages. Tongtian earth-shattering, sweeping through the heavens. At this moment, Yi Xian was like the brightest star in the starry sky. No one could cover up his brilliance, and there was a terrifying might that was blooming. A mere immortal realm cultivator dares to stand shoulder to shoulder with the strongest? The undying Heaven Lord shouted coldly. The power of nirvanic extermination pierced through the starry sky. He wasn't here to congratulate Yi Xian, but to ruthlessly slap his face. Boom! A punch pierced through the heavens and the earth cracked. In the face of the undying Heaven Lord's cold mockery, Yi Xian didn't waste any words. Under the horrified gazes of the crowd, Yi Xian punched towards the undying Heaven Lord. Slash! Undying Heaven Lord roared and slashed out a saber light. Following an earth-shattering explosion, the 99 heavenly layers shook violently. Fortunately, the buried Heaven Palace was protected by the Heaven Protection Array. Otherwise, this attack would have pierced through the 99 heavens. How dare you cause trouble in my buried Heaven Palace? This sovereign lord wants to see how capable you are. Rumble. Yi Xian took a step forward, and it was as heavy as the ancient heavens. His entire body swept towards the undying Heaven Lord. The 10 great heavenly gates rotated at a terrifying speed, and the streams of reincarnation that buried the heavens exploded into the starry sky. Take my fist. Boom. Eternal reincarnation, eternal heaven and earth. This punch pierced through the starry sky and the universe. This punch shattered the ancient and modern heavens and earth. This punch buried the eternal reincarnation. How dare you? Yi Xian attacked without any hesitation. This was beyond the undying Heaven Lord's expectations. Facing Yi Xian's punch that could pierce through the ancient times, the undying Heaven Lord's expression changed drastically. Terrifying. It was too terrifying. It wasn't that the undying Heaven Lord was afraid of Yi Xian's punch. Even though this punch was terrifying to the extreme, he was still able to withstand it. What truly moved the undying Heaven Lord was that Yi Xian's cultivation had actually increased by another 10% since the last time they fought. This caused his heart to palpitate with fear. Was he a monster? A terrifying thought flashed through the undying Heaven Lord's mind. How long had it been since then? Yi Xian's cultivation had risen again. If he continued to cultivate at this rate, wouldn't he be surpassed by Yi Xian? These thoughts flashed through the mind of the undying Heaven Lord. However, he still slashed out with his saber, wanting to destroy Yi Xian's fist. But in the next moment an uproar occurred. Boom! One punch. It was just a single punch. This punch directly shattered the blade light slashed out by the undying Heaven Lord. That terrifying fist light did not diminish in the slightest, as it smashed towards the undying Heaven Lord like a galaxy. Bam! This punch landed on the body of the undying Heaven Lord, and sent him flying. There was even a smear of blood splattering out from the undying Heaven Lord's body. How could this be? What kind of joke is this? How could he be this strong? In the next moment, the entire place was in an uproar. Many of the sect masters present were pale as snow. They could not believe their eyes. To think that the undying Heaven Lord would be sent flying by Yi Xian with a single punch. But before they could react, what happened next caused their hearts to tremble. They were terrified to the extreme. Bam! 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 Yi Xian's body was like an ancient star. He took a step forward, and tore through the endless void. He swung his fists as if he could move the stars of heaven and earth. He crazily and fiercely smashed them towards the undying Heaven Lord. Rumble! The heavens and earth rumbled as the void exploded. The undying Heaven Lord had not expected Yi Xian to use his full strength right from the start. After taking that punch from Yi Xian, he had yet to recover from the shock, and was instantly at a disadvantage. Bam! Yi Xian's punch landed on the undying Heaven Lord's face. Although the Nirvana energy blocked it, the undying Heaven Lord was still sent flying. Bam! Yi Xian's right foot stomped on the sky as the void beneath his feet collapsed. He appeared in front of the undying Heaven Lord in an instant, and sent a slap towards the undying Heaven Lord. Bam! Yi Xian's attack was too domineering. Without giving the undying Heaven Lord any time to react, he was sent flying down from the sky. Boom! The undying Heaven Lord crashed onto the ground like a kite with a broken string. A terrifying human-shaped crater appeared on the ground. Everything was silent, and the heavens and earth were silent. This scene happened so quickly that no one had time to react. But when it happened, the entire Yunxiao banquet was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone's face was pale, and the sound of teeth chattering could be heard. Yi Xian, you damned bastard! I'll take your life! Boom! An extremely venomous roar came from the hole. Following the dust that soared into the sky, the undying Heaven Lord shot out explosively. His entire body transformed into a black light as he charged towards Yi Xian. Humiliation. A great humiliation. Being beaten up by Yi Xian in front of all the sect leaders was a great humiliation to the undying Heaven Lord. He was furious and wanted to take back his dignity. Undying Heaven Lord, are you done? Boom! As the 9-colored divine light arrived, the extreme love lord instantly appeared in front of Yi Xian, causing the undying Heaven Lord to stop in his tracks. Sir, why don't you and I work together to kill him? The extreme love master smiled coldly. Sure. Yi Xian smiled coldly, and the heaven-destroying halberd appeared. The undying Heaven Lord's expression changed as he realized that he was at a disadvantage. My three friends, let's talk nicely. Why do you have to fight? Just as the situation was getting tense, a deep and majestic voice came. Chaotic holy light spread out in the sky. It was the Master of Chaos. Almost at the same time, the Lord of Destiny and the Lord of Spacetime also arrived one after another, following the arrival of the three supreme experts. The undying Heaven Lord's expression relaxed slightly as he hatefully glared at Yi Xian and the Lord of Extreme Emotion. Although he was unwilling, he could only give up. Yi Daoyu. The Master of Chaos walked over and greeted Yi Xian. This caused Yi Xian and the Extreme Love Master to retract their killing intent. Today is the founding ceremony of the Zhongtian Palace and the wedding of your disciple. Let's put aside some disputes for now, the Master of Time and Space said. Alright, I'll give you face today. But if anyone else wants to cause trouble here, I won't hold back. Yi Xian said coldly. However, his gaze landed on the Undying Heaven Lord. Obviously, he was saying this for the Undying Heaven Lord. Undying, you can't kill him now. Why do you have to fight with him? The Master of Destiny secretly transmitted his voice, causing the Undying Heaven Lord to nod his head gloomily. He temporarily suppressed his hatred for Yi Xian. Congratulations, fellow Taoist. A ray of spiritual light appeared in the sky. The Master of all spirits was walking over. Rumble. The sky was dark and demonic aura was rolling. Almost at the same time, the sky-devouring Demon Master and the Destruction Demon Master appeared. Chapter 17:11. Fellow Taoists, please take your seats. Under Yi Xian's invitation, the 8 utmost powerful beings sat cross-legged in the sky. The living beings of the Yunxiao banquet below bowed to the utmost powerful beings as well. Let the founding ceremony begin. Fatso Huang walked out at the right time and read out the funeral oration. It was nothing more than some pompous speech. It was also the process of the founding ceremony. At this moment, Yi Xian and the 8 utmost powerful beings sat cross-legged in the sky. He would talk to Extreme Emotion and Spacetime from time to time. The other utmost powerful beings were silent. Clearly, they had their own thoughts. Yi Daoyu, this is a small gift from me. The heaven-devouring demon master smiled and threw out a black light that landed in Yi Xian's hands. Chaos Black Lotus? Looking at the black lotus in his hands, Yi Xian squinted his eyes. He had not expected the heaven-devouring demon master to give him such a valuable gift. Thank you, Demon Master. Yi Xian smiled insincerely. Even though he didn't have as much of a grudge with the heaven-devouring Demon Master as compared to the Undying Heaven Master, they were definitely not friends. Clearly, the heaven-devouring Demon Master had an ulterior motive for giving such a valuable gift. However, Yi Xian thought that it would be a waste if he didn't take it. He accepted the Chaos Black Lotus and even thanked the heaven-devouring Demon Master hypocritically. Yi Daoyu, this myriad spirit pearl can speed up one's cultivation. Even though it's useless to you, it's just right for your disciple to cultivate. The Lord of all spirits also gave a gift. Even though it wasn't as good as the Chaos Black Lotus, it was still a chaotic treasure. Following that, the 3 supreme experts also took out congratulatory gifts to give to Yi Xian. Every single treasure was extremely extraordinary, causing Yi Xian to accept them one after another to express his gratitude. However, when Yi Xian received the treasure from the Master of Fate, Yi Xian's heart skipped a beat. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. He had never forgotten the scene of the Master of Destiny joining hands with the Undying Heaven Lord to kill him. However, it was not the right time for him to fall out with them. After all, making too many enemies would not do him any good. After the various supreme experts presented their gifts, only the Undying Heaven Lord remained untouched. Yi Xian naturally wouldn't expect the Undying Heaven Lord to really give him any treasures. After all, the two of them were already mortal enemies. Yi Xian, this Lord also has a gift for you. You must keep it well. Wang, the Undying Heaven Lord waved his hand, and a pitch-black coffin appeared. Clearly this was his gift to Yi Xian. This black coffin is made of blackstone profound crystal. In the future, when you die, you can be buried in this coffin to ensure that your body won't rot. The undying Heaven Lord sneered. Hee hee. Yi Xian chuckled. However, his chuckle was extremely cold. He then kept the black coffin in his Qianquan bag before looking at the undying Heaven Lord. I'll accept your gift. However, I won't be able to use it. After you die, I'll personally bury you in this black coffin. That'll depend on your capabilities. The undying Heaven Lord sneered. The two of them were at each other's throats. One could say that neither of them was willing to budge an inch. The other supreme experts looked on coldly from the sidelines. Naturally, they would not get involved in the grudge between the two. Rumble. All of a sudden, the heavens and earth trembled as the void rippled. Two figures appeared in the void almost at the same time. A horrifying aura was released to the extreme. Half-step to supreme expert. The master of chaos was stunned. He could tell the cultivation base of the other party with a single glance. This was something that had him astonished as well. It wasn't just the master of chaos. The other supreme experts looked over at the other party as well. All of their faces were filled with astonishment. One must know that half-step to supreme experts were extremely rare. After all, the next Yuanhui had yet to start. If one were to become a half-step to supreme expert in this Yuanhui, they would lose the qualifications to fight for the title of supreme expert in the next Yuanhui. Gai Tianyuan, it's you? All of a sudden, the master of all spirits stood up in shock. He looked over at one of the people and could not believe his eyes. It was no wonder that the master of all spirits was so shocked. Back then, he had personally destroyed the Tianyuan kingdom and killed Gai Tianyuan. To think that the other party was still alive and had become a half-step to supreme expert. Yiling Tian, long time no see. Looking at his old rival, the master of all spirits, Gai Tianyuan smiled faintly. There was no longer any hostility from before. Gai Tianyuan? Yi Xian's expression changed slightly. He knew very well that Gai Tianyuan had always been by Ancient Shadow's side. Now that he had appeared here, could it be that Ancient Shadow was here as well? Yi Daoyu, this is the congratulatory gift that the master ordered me to send over. Gai Tianyuan took out a brocade box and handed it over to Yi Xian. Under the orders of my clan's old ancestor, this is a congratulatory gift. Please accept it. The other person was the Astral Beast King. With a cold expression, he also took out a brocade box and handed it over to Yi Xian. Clearly, he still remembered how Yi Xian had slaughtered his entire clan. You are a guest. Please take a seat. Yi Xian's eyes were deep as he invited the two to take a seat. Although these two were only half-step to supreme experts, the people behind them made Yi Xian feel heavy. Plus, the two of them appeared at the same time and gave him two brocade boxes. The things inside must be extraordinary. The ceremony continued until half a day had passed before it finally ended. Next, Yi Fengtian and Wan Hongling appeared. The two of them wore wedding clothes and bowed to the heavens and earth. Then they served tea to Yi Xian, officially becoming partners. What happened next was simple. The Palace of Buried Heaven had two joyous events. The banquet lasted for 7 days. Many guests stayed, but the supreme experts all left. However, the Space-Time Master and the Extreme Love Master stayed. As for the Sky-Devouring Demon Master, he had his own reasons for staying as well. As for the Astral Beast King and Gai Tianyuan, they stayed as well. Obviously, the two of them didn't come just to deliver the congratulatory gift. Inside the palace, Gai Tianyuan and the Astral Beast King stood side by side. Two brocade boxes were placed in front of Yi Xian. As Yi Xian opened the boxes, two items appeared. When the two items fell into Yi Xian's eyes, Yi Xian was stunned. Because the two boxes contained the same item. Jade bamboo strips. The two jade slips were as black as ink, with forbidden death chi lingering around them. Yi Xian picked up one of the jade bamboo strips and began to read its contents. After a full hour, he put down the first jade bamboo strip. However, Yi Xian's face was a little gloomy. After a long while, he picked up the second jade bamboo strip. This time he was very fast. In just a few dozen breaths, he put down the second jade bamboo strip again. Silence. Absolute silence. When Yi Xian finished reading the two jade bamboo strips, he became silent. However, an extremely oppressive aura was growing from his body. Did they have anything to say? Yi Xian finally looked at the two of them. Master said that if you want to break through this calamity, he can help you. You just have to meet him personally, Gai Tianyuan said in a low voice. My ancestor gave you 4 words. Take care, the Astral Beast King said. Hee. Yi Xian laughed, but his laughter was very cold. Then he went silent again. The contents of the 2 jade bamboo strips were almost the same. It could be said that it was a complete cultivation system. If the strongest of all time saw it, they would definitely risk their lives to snatch it away. Because the 2 jade bamboo strips explained what the immortal 12 heaven gates were, and recorded in detail the taboos of the 12 heaven gates, Yi Xian knew how dangerous his current situation was. Chapter 17:12. The 12 Heavenly Gates of Eternity. Yi Xian walked the path of the 12 Heavenly Gates of Eternity, but the contents of the 2 jade slips told him that this was also a taboo path that wasn't tolerated by the Chaos Verse. Ever since he opened the 10th Heavenly Gate, he had already violated the Chaos Taboo. Nothing could be seen now, but once he opened the 11th Heavenly Gate, the chaos would befall him with a supreme tribulation. Chaos Heavenly Punishment. These 4 simple words weighed as much as the ages. When Yi Xian opened the 11th Heavenly Gate, Chaos Heavenly Punishment would descend. It was a tribulation that even taboo figures feared. Was Aeon Shadow strong? Back then, he had walked out of the river of time and suppressed the 10 paragons single-handedly. But when faced with the descent of Chaos Heavenly Punishment, he was defeated and fled to the Chaos world. The ancestor of all beasts' intentions were clear. He wanted to tell Yi Xian that he couldn't continue down this path. Otherwise, Yi Xian's soul would dissipate, and he would die in the Chaos Heavenly Punishment. As for Aeon Shadow, he told Yi Xian that he could help Yi Xian transcend the tribulation. He wanted Yi Xian to personally head to the Chaos world to meet him. However, Yi Xian knew very well that Aeon Shadow had ulterior motives for helping him. He wouldn't be so kind as to help him. However, the words Chaos Heavenly Punishment made Yi Xian's heart sink. This was a tribulation that even taboo figures feared. What right did he have to transcend it? Phew. Yi Xian slowly exhaled a turbid breath. He suppressed his heavy emotions and made a decision. There was no way he would seek help from a taboo figure. This was because he was still far from a taboo figure. He didn't have the qualifications to speak on equal terms. He could only be at the mercy of a taboo figure. Until this moment, Yi Xian was increasingly eager to open the 7th tiny cauldron. Perhaps the method to transcend Chaos Heavenly Punishment was hidden in the 7th tiny cauldron. This feeling was extremely strong, and it made Yi Xian very certain. It was as though there was a voice in the unseen telling him to open the 7th tiny cauldron as soon as possible. Of course, apart from the 7th cauldron, Yi Xian also had the life-stealing technique to rely on. However, the failure of the life calamity technique allowed Yi Xian to know that this technique was too dangerous. Previously, he had an avatar to help him withstand the calamity of death. If he failed again, then his soul would truly dissipate and he would die. Now there were only 2 key issues. He had to open the 7th cauldron as soon as possible, and then open the 11th heavenly gate. But before that, Yi Xian still had one more thing to do. Something that he had always wanted to do, but was unable to do. He couldn't be killed. That's right, he couldn't kill the Heaven Lord. At this moment, Yi Xian had an unprecedented opportunity. He really didn't want to let go of this opportunity. I have a request. Yi Xian was silent for a while before he finally raised his head and looked at the 2 half-step strongest experts. You and I have known each other for many years. Feel free to speak your mind. Gai Tianyuan smiled slightly. After all, if it wasn't for Yi Xian, he wouldn't have been able to follow beside the ancient shadow, let alone reconstruct his body. Since Yi Xian had a request, he naturally wouldn't reject it. Old ancestor said that the reason our space beasts regained our intelligence was all because of your help. Feel free to speak your mind. The Space Beast King said, I would like to ask the 2 of you to kill someone. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. Who? The 2 half-step strongest experts were stunned. Yi Xian's cultivation base was stronger than theirs, but he was asking for their help to kill someone? Heaven Lord of Undying. Yi Xian said word by word. What? The two half-step strongest experts' expressions changed as if they couldn't believe their ears. They looked at Yi Xian with shock in their eyes. Yi Xian, do you know what you're talking about? Gai Tianyuan frowned. It's not that I don't want to help you. It's just that although we're half-step strongest experts, even if the three of us work together, we still can't kill an ultimate expert. The Space Beast King said. Calm down, the two of you. Yi Xian had long expected such a reaction from the two. He smiled and said, as long as the two of you agree to help me, I naturally have the confidence to kill him. Next, Yi Xian briefly chatted with the two of them. When they heard Yi Xian's plan, the two half-step experts had bewildered expressions. In the end they agreed. Because Yi Xian's plan was flawless, and there was indeed a chance to kill the Undying Heaven Lord. The two half-step strongest experts bade farewell and left. Yi Xian personally sent the two of them out of the Imperial Palace with a gentle smile on his face. As the two of them left the Imperial Palace, the smile on Yi Xian's face disappeared. He frowned slightly, and a ruthless look flashed across his eyes. There was a saying that went, those who strike first gain the upper hand, those who strike later suffer. The Undying Heaven Lord couldn't wait for Yi Xian to die, and would definitely think of a way to kill him. Therefore, Yi Xian had to make the first move and eliminate this hidden danger. Yi Xian didn't want to have any worries. The threat of the Undying Heaven Lord was like a fishbone stuck in his throat. Now that there was a chance to kill him, Yi Xian naturally wouldn't let it go. Next, Yi Xian still had to meet two people. And these two people were also the key to killing the Undying Heaven Lord. Inside the Imperial Palace, the Space-Time Master and the Extreme Emotion Master came together. Yi Xian invited the two of them to take a seat. The three of them sat cross-legged and faced each other with smiles on their faces. The 10 heavenly gates are rare in the world. My friend, your future is limitless. The Space-Time Master praised sincerely. If it wasn't for your protection back then, my soul might have dispersed, and I wouldn't have been able to open the 10 heavenly gates today. Yi Xian said humbly. At this point, Yi Xian paused for a moment. This also let the two know that Yi Xian had something to say. Actually, I have invited the two of you here today because I have a request. Yi Xian said as he stood up and bowed to the two of them. Sir, there's no need for that. Just say what you want. The Extreme Emotion Master said. That's right. If I can help, I won't refuse. The Space-Time Master smiled. All right. Yi Xian didn't act pretentious, and said with a serious expression. I would like to invite the two of you to work together with me to kill the Undying Heaven Lord. Silence. Silence. When Yi Xian finished speaking, the two of them held their breaths. This was especially so for the Space-Time Master. The smile on his face disappeared at this moment, and was replaced with a solemn expression. Sir's enemy is Qingmei's enemy. The Undying Heaven Lord should be killed. The Extreme Emotion Master agreed without hesitation. The Extreme Emotion Master's agreement was within Yi Xian's expectations. At this moment, the only thing he cared about was whether the Space-Time Master would agree. If the Space-Time Master agreed to work together with him to kill the Undying Heaven Lord, this matter would be more than half successful. After all, the Space-Time Master was one of the three strongest of all time. Just him alone was stronger than the Undying Heaven Lord. Yi Daoyu, I'm very sorry. I can't help you with this matter. After a full 10 breaths of time, the Space-Time Master said with an apologetic expression. Disappointment flashed across Yi Xian's eyes at the Space-Time Master's rejection. However, he couldn't force the Space-Time Master to help him. After all, the Space-Time Master didn't owe Yi Xian anything. The Space-Time Master helped him out of goodwill. But it was also his duty not to help him. Yi Daoyu, it's not that I don't want to help you. It's just that killing the other strongest will cause a huge change. Moreover, the fate of chaos will definitely not allow me to do so. Chapter 17:13. The three of us control the three great laws of the universe, and we are supported by the will of primal chaos, so we can't act recklessly. Please understand. Space-Time Master said. It's fine. Yi Xian smiled. Space-Time Master said seriously. Yi Daoyu, I know that the enmity between you and Undying is irreconcilable, but there's one thing I need to tell you. Undying is someone who achieved the Tao in the fourth era. He comprehended the great Tao of Nirvana. The so-called Nirvana is the end of everything. If you can't kill him, he will eventually make a comeback. You must weigh the relationship between the two clearly. Spacetime Master reminded Yi Xian seriously. Clearly, Undying Heaven Lord wasn't so simple. And he wasn't the Lord of the Extreme Devil. Other than the three great Tao Ascendants, Undying Heaven Lord was the fourth Tao Ascendant, and the Tao of Nirvana he comprehended was also a terrifying power. Thank you for the reminder. Yi Xian nodded seriously, but his determination to kill Undying was already very strong, because Yi Xian knew very well that even if he didn't scheme against Undying Heaven Lord now, he would definitely find a way to kill him. Therefore, Yi Xian chose to strike first. If Undying Heaven Lord and Master of Fate attacked again, Yi Xian definitely didn't want to see the result. Because in today's ceremony, although Master of Fate seemed calm, Yi Xian could feel that Master of Fate wanted to kill him. So he definitely couldn't give them a chance to work together. In the end, Spacetime Master bid farewell and left. But before he left, he warned Yi Xian not to attack Undying Heaven Lord unless he had absolute confidence. Inside the palace, Extreme Love Master frowned slightly and said, Mister, with just you and me and two half-step Tao Ascendants, I'm afraid we still can't kill Undying Heaven Lord. I know. Yi Xian nodded slowly. Even if Extreme Love Master didn't say it, he naturally understood this principle. Indeed, with two half-step Tao Ascendants, plus Yi Xian and Extreme Love Master, Undying Heaven Lord was no match at all. However, if the Deathless Heaven Lord wanted to flee, there was nothing they could do to stop him. After all, the title of Strongest of All Ages was not just for show. Looks like we can only take this final step. Yi Xian muttered in a low voice, and a wisp of gloominess and viciousness flashed through his eyes. In the vast sky, the clouds stretched for thousands of miles. The two figures stood side by side. Above their heads were the stars in the sky. Bright starlight poured down in torrents, illuminating the two figures without a speck of dust. I've been waiting for you for a long time. I know. You know what I'm waiting for. The heaven-devouring demon master was surrounded by demonic qi. Yi Xian stood with his hands behind his back. When their gazes met, the corners of their mouths curled into deep smiles. There were no eternal enemies in this world, only eternal benefits. At this moment, this sentence fully explained the relationship between Yi Xian and the heaven-devouring demon master. Even though Yi Xian knew that the heaven-devouring demon master wanted to kill him, the two of them still chatted happily. I want the complete tribulation transcender technique. The heaven-devouring demon master did not speak any nonsense. His purpose in staying in Buried Heaven Palace was to obtain the complete tribulation transcender technique in Yi Xian's hands. Yi Xian said, Okay, but I have a condition. Speak. The heaven-devouring demon master did not have any change in expression. If Yi Xian gave him the tribulation transcender technique for free, he would feel that it was a fantasy. Yi Xian said, Help me kill Undying Heaven Lord. Boom. In the next moment, the heaven-devouring demon master's aura became chaotic. The terrifying heaven-devouring demonic light surged violently, and his pair of cold eyes froze. What did you say? The heaven-devouring demon master was bewildered. He could not believe his ears. Yi Xian said with a strange smile, It's very simple if you want the tribulation transcender technique. As long as you promise to help me kill Undying Heaven Lord, I'll give you the technique. What a joke. The heaven-devouring demon master finally confirmed that he had not misheard. He looked at Yi Xian with a sneer and said, Although this lord believes that his cultivation is not below Undying Heaven Lord's, I still can't kill him. Even if you and I join forces, we won't succeed. Moreover, the battle between the strongest is of great importance. If we can't kill Undying Heaven Lord, wouldn't this lord also have a grudge with him? It was like a fantasy story, a wild fantasy. At this moment, the heaven-devouring demon master looked at Yi Xian, as if he was looking at an idiot. Only Yi Xian could come up with such a ridiculous condition. Unfortunately, Yi Xian directly ignored the heaven-devouring demon master's sarcasm. Instead, he took out a jade slip and waved it in front of the heaven-devouring demon master's eyes. The tribulation transcender technique is here. As long as you promise to help me kill Undying Heaven Lord, I will naturally give it to you. Looking at the jade slip in Yi Xian's hand, the heaven-devouring demon master's eyes burned with passion. He wanted to snatch it, but after thinking about it, he decided not to. After all, the current Yi Xian was no longer the weak person he used to be. He had no confidence in snatching the tribulation transcender technique from Yi Xian's hands. Yi Xian, it's not that this lord doesn't agree to your condition, but this matter is simply impossible to succeed. The heaven-devouring demon master frowned. As an expert, the heaven-devouring demon master naturally knew how terrifying the Undying Heaven Lord was. Just him and Yi Xian, even with the extreme emotion master, might not be able to kill the Undying Heaven Lord. You and I, the extreme emotion master, 2 half-step experts, and 2 immortal great perfection stage experts who have walked their own path. Do you think we can kill Undying Heaven Lord? Yi Xian said coldly. The heaven-devouring demon master's expression changed slightly. His originally mocking expression gradually turned serious. 2 immortal great perfection stage experts, 1 Yi Xian, 2 half-step experts, and 2 immortal great perfection stage experts. This lineup was indeed terrifying to the extreme. At this moment, the heaven-devouring demon master was indeed tempted, because this lineup was indeed very likely to kill Undying Heaven Lord. One had to know that although Yi Xian's cultivation was a level lower than the immortal great perfection stage experts, he was still absolutely terrifying. Looking at the heaven-devouring demon master's hesitation, Yi Xian added fuel to the fire. Heaven-devouring, your cultivation has stagnated, right? Without the help of the tribulation transcender technique, your cultivation will forever stagnate. If you want to enter that legendary forbidden realm, this tribulation transcender technique is your only chance. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, the heaven-devouring demon master laughed wildly. Then, he nodded at Yi Xian and said, Yi Xian, I have to say that you have indeed touched my weakness. Okay, I promise you. But I hope you can remember your promise. I also want you to swear to the chaotic universe that you must give me the complete tribulation transcender technique after everything is done. Of course. After saying this, Yi Xian directly swore to the chaotic universe, which made the heaven-devouring demon master feel relieved. After all, he had sworn an oath to the primal chaos universe. If Yi Xian really broke his promise, then his Tao heart would be flawed and his cultivation would stop forever. Inside the imperial palace, Yi Xian was dressed in black, and the heaven-devouring demon master and extreme emotion master stood side by side with him. On the 2 sides below the 3 of them were the 2 half-step immortal great perfection stage experts, Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang. 7 people. A total of 7 people. And the weakest of them was at the immortal great perfection stage. However, Li Taichu and Jun Wushuang were not ordinary immortal great perfection stage experts. The 2 of them had walked their own path, and their combat strength was terrifying to the extreme. I've already told everyone the plan. As long as he doesn't die, he will definitely not return. Yi Xian's voice echoed throughout the imperial palace. Chapter 1714. Undying Heaven Palace. 10,000 laws, and 10,000 spirits were silent. Undying Heaven Lord looked up at the vast starry sky. His sharp and deep eyes were filled with unerasable heaviness. Ever since the trip to buried Heaven Palace, his heart had become heavier and heavier. Be it Yi Xian's cultivation, extreme emotions attitude, or even Yi Xian's Tao orthodoxy, they all posed a great threat to him. I'm a supreme expert, the master of the universe, but look at what I've become. How can I be forced to this point by Yi Xian? Undying Heaven Lord muttered, his eyes filled with unerasable coldness. Regardless of whether Undying Heaven Lord admitted it or not, Yi Xian's wings were already fully grown, and his forces were gradually growing stronger. Undying Heaven Lord believed that once Yi Xian's cultivation improved, Yi Xian would definitely come knocking on his door. Regardless of whether it was him or his undying heaven palace, they would all suffer an unprecedented calamity. If my Tao of Nirvana could improve further, I would definitely be able to kill Yi Xian. Undying Heaven Lord muttered unwillingly. His cultivation had stagnated for a very, very long time. It was too difficult to take this step, and he couldn't find the direction to advance. However, the sense of urgency that Yi Xian gave him made Undying Heaven Lord very clear that if he couldn't improve further, he would die in Yi Xian's hands in the future. Humans didn't want to die. Undying Heaven Lord was the same. He didn't want to die in Yi Xian's hands, and he couldn't accept the result of Yi Xian's hands. Destiny. Undying Heaven Lord transmitted his voice across domains. A water screen appeared, and as Destiny's phantom flickered in the water screen, the two supreme experts stared at each other across space. Undying, Destiny said calmly, no matter the price, I will kill Yi Xian. Undying Heaven Lord said solemnly, the time isn't right. We can't kill him. Destiny replied, River of Destiny. The Undying Heaven Lord's eyes shone brightly. No matter how powerful he is, he will still die under the River of Destiny. As an apex expert, the Undying Heaven Lord knew how terrifying the three great rivers were. As long as the Master of Fate summoned the River of Fate, Yi Xian would not be able to escape. The price of summoning the River of Fate is too great. Let me think about it. The Master of Fate was silent for a while before replying to the Undying Heaven Lord. Don't think about it for too long, because we don't have much time left. If he takes another step forward and stands shoulder to shoulder with us, killing him will be harder than ascending to the heavens. The Undying Heaven Lord coldly said. The Undying Heaven Master paused for a moment before he continued in a deep voice. Moreover, don't forget that the 10th Yuan Hui will end in 300 million years. If he lives until the next Yuan Hui, he will become the master of the 11th Yuan Hui. You should be able to imagine what will happen then, right? I know. I will think about it carefully. The Master of Fate sighed and slowly disappeared into the water screen. After cutting off the connection with the Master of Fate, the Undying Heaven Lord's face turned slightly ferocious as he muttered, Fate, you are still underestimating him. If you don't get rid of him, he will be a huge threat to you sooner or later. The Undying Heaven Lord was unwilling, but he really had no other choice. Other than the Master of Fate summoning the River of Fate to kill Yi Xian, he could not think of any other way. Wait. He could only wait. Wait for the Master of Fate to give him a reply. Boom. All of a sudden, just as the Undying Heaven Lord was deep in thought, an earth-shattering explosion resounded, causing the entire Undying Heaven Palace to tremble. How dare you? The Undying Heaven Lord was shocked as he sensed that someone had invaded the Undying Heaven Palace. He even slashed his sword at the Undying Heaven Palace. Boom! The Undying Heaven Lord took a step forward and instantly appeared in the outside world. A sword mark that was 1,000,000 miles long appeared, and countless buildings and palaces were reduced to ruins. Junior, it's you? The Undying Heaven Lord looked up and saw Li Taichu's figure. This caused his face to turn terrifyingly cold. Li Taichu was one of Yi Xian's men, yet he actually charged into the Undying Heavenly Palace. If he still didn't understand what was going on, then he would be too stupid. A mere Undying Great Perfection Realm cultivator dared to invade a supreme orthodoxy. He did not even put the Undying Heaven Lord in his eyes. How could the Undying Heaven Lord not be enraged? My lord said that he will give you a big gift every 10,000 years. Goodbye, Li Taichu said coldly, and did not stay any longer. He turned into a supreme sword light and left. Do you think you can leave? If the Undying Heaven Lord did not do anything when he was bullied by the people of Buried Heaven Palace, then he would be a joke. Rumble! The Undying Heaven Lord stretched out his 5 fingers, wanting to crush the starry space and universe. He directly shot towards Li Taichu, wanting to capture him. Huh! The Undying Heaven Lord was stunned, because he was actually unable to capture Li Taichu. An extremely powerful energy surged over, protecting Li Taichu, and allowing him to leave safely. Yi Xian? The Undying Heaven Lord's face turned pale. He took a step forward, and disappeared from the Undying Heaven Palace. In the boundless starry sky, There were stars everywhere. The stars rotated and shone brightly. The sea of stars churned violently. As the undying Heaven Lord appeared in this part of the starry sky, the entire starry sky trembled. Yi Xian, get out here! The undying Heaven Lord roared coldly. He could sense that Yi Xian was here because Yi Xian's aura had appeared here. Clap! 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 7 figures walked out from the depths of the starry sky and surrounded the undying Heaven Lord. It's you guys? When the undying Heaven Lord saw the faces of the 7 people, his face turned gloomy. Fear flashed in his eyes as the terror of life and death assaulted him. Undying, do you know how long I've been waiting for this day? Yi Xian's expression was calm. He walked slowly towards the undying Heaven Lord. His eyes were even more lifeless. It was as if he was talking to an old friend. Yi Xian, you are more sinister and ruthless than I imagined. The undying Heaven Lord suppressed the fear in his heart. His deep gaze swept across the 6 people present. When he saw the heaven-devouring demon lord and the extreme emotion master, a self-mocking smile appeared on his face. Same to you. I'm just doing what you did to me in the past. Yi Xian said calmly. Heaven-devouring, why are you helping him to harm me? At this point, the undying Heaven Lord had nothing to say. He knew that he had fallen into Yi Xian's trap. However, he couldn't understand. The heaven-devouring demon lord and Yi Xian were clearly enemies, and not friends. Why would the heaven-devouring demon lord turn against him today? Undying, have you heard of this saying? In this world, there are no eternal friends and no eternal enemies. There are only eternal benefits. The heaven-devouring demon lord said calmly. I understand. The undying Heaven Lord nodded slowly. The heaven-devouring demon lord's words were enough to explain everything. Yi Xian, you spent so much effort to lure me here. Do you think you can kill me? The undying Heaven Lord said coldly. Can't I kill you? Yi Xian asked calmly. Chapter 1715. Speechless. The undying Heaven Lord fell silent. As an eternal paragon and a Taoist of the 4th era, the undying Heaven Lord was well aware of his current situation. 2 paragons, 1 Yi Xian, 2 half-step paragons, and 2 complete Undying Realm juniors. A total of 7 paragons, it was more than enough to kill him. Yi Xian, I've said before that you and I are very similar. However, I admit that I'm not as vicious as you are. Facing such a hopeless situation, the undying Heaven Lord calmed down. Undying, your biggest mistake is that you weren't ruthless enough. If you were ruthless enough back then, you wouldn't be in this situation today. If you don't remove the roots, they'll grow again. It's not like you don't understand this logic. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance anymore. Yi Xian said calmly. Haha. The undying Heaven Lord laughed out loud because Yi Xian had taught him a lesson. The price of this lesson might be his life. Clang. The undying Heaven Lord didn't waste any more words. The undying heaven blade sliced through the starry sky, and the terrifying destructive force was unleashed. I only hate fate for being so indecisive. If he had made up his mind earlier, I wouldn't have died today. Qi. The undying Heaven Lord pointed his blade at Yi Xian, his face twisted with madness. Yi Xian, even if I have to sacrifice myself today, I won't let you have an easy time. Sigh. Yi Xian let out a long sigh. Undying, killing you in such a way isn't the result I want. You can go in peace. Kill him. In the next moment, Yi Xian's face turned cold. Eternal killing intent spread out, as he held the heaven-punishing halberd in his hand, and charged at the undying Heaven Lord. Rumble. At the same time, the 6 paragons attacked together. The starry sky exploded as the ancient killing force swept towards the undying Heaven Lord. Kill. Yi Xian struck out with his halberd. The heaven-punishing reincarnation was earth-shattering. Suppress. The Extreme Love Master waved her jade-like hands. She was using the most powerful suppression technique. Die. The heaven-devouring demon lord laughed maniacally as his terrifying heaven-devouring demon light flooded the starry sky. Kill. 2 half-step absolute experts and 2 complete immortal realm experts joined hands to display their intimidating power. Undying Heaven Nirvana 10,000 Laws. Facing the attacks of the 7 experts, Undying Heaven Lord went berserk in this desperate situation. His essence, chi, and spirit were pushed to the peak, and he directly slashed at the 7 experts. Boom! The starry sky exploded, and all living things ceased to exist. The Undying Heaven Lord's attack didn't have any effect. Under the joint attack of the 7 experts, he was sent flying. Wow! A mouthful of blood spurted out from the Undying Heaven Lord's mouth. His entire body was covered in blood, and terrifying wounds could be seen everywhere. Too strong. It was so powerful that it was unfathomable. Facing the joint attack of the 7 experts, the Undying Heaven Lord encountered an unprecedented calamity. He didn't even have the strength to fight back at all. One should know that the heaven-devouring demon Lord wasn't any weaker than him. With Yixian, extreme love, and the other 4 experts, how could the Undying Heaven Lord resist? Undying Rebirth Technique. Wang. The Undying Heaven Lord roared in grief and anger. His broken body shone with a terrifying light, constantly healing his injuries. Undying, it's useless. Today is the day you die. I'll send you on your way. Rumble. Yixian attacked mercilessly. His halberd pierced through the starry sky, and the heaven-burying reincarnation light halo buried everything, directly entering the Undying Heaven Lord's chest. Bang! The heaven-devouring demon lord also attacked ruthlessly, slapping the Undying Heaven Lord's head with his palm. Bang! The extreme love force turned into endless ribbons, directly suppressing the Undying Heaven Lord in the starry sky. Bind! The 2 half-step absolute experts joined hands, each using their own suppression technique to support the Undying Heaven Lord. Kill! Li Taichu's 5th sword was unleashed, and Jun Wushuang unleashed the extreme purple heavenly energy at the same time. Wah! The Undying Heaven Lord coughed out blood continuously. His so-called absolute body was once again riddled with holes. His 7 orifices were bleeding, and the nirvanic energy around him was weakened to the extreme. Die! Yixian roared mercilessly. He sent the Undying Heaven Lord flying with his halberd. The ancient cold light flickered with a terrifying light, and as his halberd descended, it actually cut the Undying Heaven Lord in half at the waist. Blood. Fresh blood. Beautiful and beautiful blood. The blood of the absolute experts sprinkled across the starry sky. The Undying Heaven Lord was cut into 2 halves, but he wasn't truly dead. Condense. Rumble. The 2 halves of the Undying Heaven Lord's body shone, and rapidly merged together. His body recovered once again, and his entire person turned into a black light that tore through the starry sky, wanting to escape from this unprecedented situation. Do you think you can escape? Rumble. The ancient stars sealed the sky and trapped the earth. Star runes rose in all directions, directly blocking the Undying Heaven Lord's escape route. This was the method of a Chaos Star Master, and Yixian had long predicted this situation. How could he give the Undying Heaven Lord a chance to escape? Yixian. The Undying Heaven Lord was already at the end of the road. He glared at Yixian with hatred. Even though he was an absolute expert, facing the encirclement of 7 great experts, he couldn't do anything. Rumble. Yixian led the 6 great experts here, forcing the Undying Heaven Lord into a desperate situation once again. No matter how powerful he was, he wouldn't be able to escape from this place today. Throughout the ages, the absolute experts are revered, but it's a pity that they aren't immortal. Today is the day you die. You have no hope of survival. Yixian said indifferently. Ha ha ha. The Undying Heaven Lord was bleeding from his 7 orifices, and blood was flowing out from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were filled with hatred and despair. He knew that there was no way for him to survive today. Unless the 3 absolute experts appeared to save him, he would definitely die today. Undying. Actually, I have always had a wish, and that is to defeat you fair and square and kill you with my own hands. It's a pity that this wish can't be fulfilled. Yixian said solemnly. Yixian, you haven't won yet. Even if I die today, I'll drag all of you down with me. Suddenly, the Undying Heaven Lord roared. His body suddenly expanded, and an unimaginably terrifying energy spread out, causing this part of the universe to darken. Retreat, he's going to self-destruct. The heaven-devouring demon lord was shocked and warned Yi Xian and the others. The others hurriedly retreated when they heard that. They even unleashed their strongest powers. One should know that the self-destruction of the strongest of all time could really kill them. The power of the self-destruction was simply terrifying to the extreme. Yi Xian, I'm going to take you down with me today. The undying heaven lord roared with hatred. His body swelled up like a balloon. The destructive force that could destroy the starry sky was unleashed. It was a terrifying force that had never been seen before. You don't have the chance anymore. Yi Xian roared malevolently. He had already calculated everything. He naturally knew that the undying heaven lord would choose to self-destruct when he was forced into a corner. Yi Xian formed seals with his hands and retreated rapidly. The starry runes in the sky descended, trapping the undying heaven lord within. Buzz! The other 6 didn't dare to delay, and struck out seals to support Yi Xian. The 7 of them worked together to suppress the undying heaven lord in the depths of the starry sky. There was no way they would give the undying heaven lord a chance to drag them down with him. I hate this. The undying heaven lord roared with hatred. If he couldn't kill Yi Xian with his self-destruction, he would die with regrets. His heart was filled with unwillingness. But so what if he was unwilling? He had already reached the end of the road. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.